guys, welcome to Cult Film and Review, the podcast where we discuss the films you love but no one else gets, and we see if they still hold up. Tonight, we're diving into the heart of darkness with Come and See. This Soviet-era classic delivers raw intensity and unflinching realism as it explores the horrors of war through the eyes of a young Belarusian boy. So let's start the show. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are going to be talking about Come and See, but before we do, as always, I am joined by Michael Slucio.
Hello, everyone.
Chris Willenbrecht.
Hey, what's up?
And Kyle Smith.
Hey, how's it going?
First, do us a favor, head over to cultfilmandreview.com. Make sure you get your fan picks in, and then when you're done with that, make sure you follow us on social media at cultfilm_review on Instagram, and I believe that's the same for TikTok. TikTok
Yeah,
is the same?
indeed.
As well. So head over there, guys, because we got a whole bunch of conversations going on there. We're connecting with you guys, and you can be a part of our show with our new segment, Let's Get Social with It. So please join us on our social media. Usually every Friday, I pose a question to our audience, asking them to share their thoughts with us. And a couple Fridays ago, I did pose the question of who is the best cult film actor or your favorite cult film actor. And I thought we'd go over some of the answers. And I thought you guys could share who you think your favorite cult film actor is as well. So you guys can share.
Okay.
Do any of you guys want to go first? Would you like to hear some of our listeners first?
Let's hear what the listeners have to say first.
I didn't even come prepared for this.
I mean, it was in our text chain before we got here today, Chris. So at J Plus says Kurt Russell forever.
I mean, that's the correct answer.
That's a great answer. Kurt Russell is a great answer. At Blake Winslow _art says Tom Atkins, baby.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins.
Love Tom Atkins.
At Campo.review says Timothy Curry. Some of you guys might know Timothy Curry.
Timothy Curry.
Yeah, I know. I like it when they church it up. It's good.
Timothy.
At 8 Kirby 8 said Pam Grier.
Pam Grier.
Yep.
Classic.
Good choice.
At Mondo Mark said Edith Massey.
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Good
I thought that would get
Yeah.
Chris. I thought that would get Chris. Aaron, we got to work on this name here. But at Aaron _Dawn Murphy's _mom said Dick Miller and Linnea Quigley.
Oh, yeah. Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show,
Friend of
Dick
the
Miller.
show. Dick Miller.
Linnea Quigley.
Linnea Quigley.
And at Seth, at VHS _Seth said Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, we can't forget at Uncle Josh 13 saying Bruce Campbell.
Okay.
Bruce Campbell's on the list as well there. So that is some of our listeners' favorite cult film actors. We had over 100 comments on this where people
that's dope.
naming their favorite cult film actors.
Nobody said Harry Dean Stanton?
I believe Harry Dean Stanton was on there.
Okay.
There was just, I didn't have a ton of things.
We could do the whole show where we just name.
Just read
Yeah.
each
At-
response.
At London FU said Dean Stockwell as well.
Stockwell.
So I thought about this. I was thinking about this for a while, and I was like, kind of like, man, who is like the quintessential cult film actress? Like, who instantly comes to mind? Lance Henderson is someone that comes to mind for me. Bill Paxton, Kurt Russell, those are great answers. Tim Curry is another great answer. Those instantly came to my mind as well. And then some of these other ones I feel like should have came to mind that didn't come to mind. Like Dick Miller didn't come to mind instantly for me, but I was like, oh yeah, should have.
Yeah.
Same with Dean Stockwell. I was like, that's another one again, should have came to mind, but didn't. But yeah, I would say I'll start. I mean, do you guys want me to start naming yours for you? Because I feel like I could. I feel like Kyle's is Kurt Russell. Yours is obviously Bruce Campbell because of the wall behind me. And Chris's is the tricky one. Chris is the tricky one. It's going to be someone from a John Waters film, though. I just don't know.
Is it
Mink
Divine?
Stoll?
Is Divine
or Mink Stoll?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, do you have one?
Like, because they don't span enough, I think, of a career for me.
Divine doesn't span enough of a career?
I mean, no. Like, I feel like somebody like Dick Miller definitely, like, when that got mentioned, I was like, yeah, because he's the guy that, like, always shows up. Like, I even thought about, like,
in everything.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
oddly enough, and I don't know if this is cult enough to say, but like Steve Buscemi came
Steve
to mind
Buscemi's-
as
Steve
well.
Buscemi's-
Like,
yeah.
and I'm just
Ghost
like,
World, baby.
I don't know why. Like, there are those people that like pop up in so many different things that you're just so happy to
Yeah.
see them, you know. But
Yeah.
as far as cult icon, like I guess the actors you got, Kurt Russell, has played like characters that are iconic forever. So I
Yeah.
could see how that would be at the top of the list.
Kurt Russell is definitely up there. Vin Diesel's up there.
Really?
No, just kidding.
Oh, no, maybe.
That's about family.
Wow!
It's about
I
family.
feel like there's one or two that he could have been in.
No, I think this is a great list. Like I said, guys, every Friday I usually post a question, so please join us for the discussion. We'd love to have your thoughts on a lot of these. We'll have more next show. So let's get to the reason why we're here, and that's come and see. Let's look at some of these stats. I'm going to go ahead and apologize right now because I'm going to mispronounce all of this. Kyle said 2 episodes ago. We give him a foreign film and good luck.
No,
and
those are my
we
best
have here-
episodes. Yeah.
This is a Soviet film, so Elem Klimov, Klimov,
I think it's Klimov.
Klimov.
I think it's Elem Klimov.
Elem Klimov is the director. It was written by
Elem.
Elise Adamовich and Elem Klimov. I can't again. I'm not going to be able to say it. Aleksei.
Kravchenko.
There you go. Olga
Miranova.
are the starring actors, and it came out in 1985. Don't really know what the budget was for this, but it did make $21 million in the box office, and it currently sits at a 90% critic rating and a 96% audience score
Okay.
Mhm.
on Rotten Tomatoes, which is
So people didn't like it.
this is people definitely do not like this film.
Yeah.
This was Chris's pick. Chris, why'd you pick Come and See?
I pick Come and See because
We all turned to him.
Yes.
Come and See I picked because this was recommended to me probably 2 or 3 years ago. I'd never heard of this movie. I didn't know anything about this movie. But the person who recommended it to me said, just watch this trailer, and then see if you'd be interested. And I saw, I think it was like one of a more recent trailer that was made, like a 2019 trailer.
A Criterion trailer.
Yeah. And I was instantly captivated by the trailer. And I said to myself, next time I'm at Zia, I'm going to buy this movie. And if the podcast ever comes back, I'm going to pick this movie because I've not only heard it recommended to me by people who I trust their judgment in film and like their taste, but also like I had heard rumblings like of this being on lists of like greatest films, but I really kept my knowledge of the film to a minimum for as long as humanly possible up until watching it for the first time for this podcast.
Wait, you bought the movie a long time ago
Yeah.
and didn't watch it
Right.
until
Yes, I didn't even take the fucking
it's just
plastic
been
off.
Wow.
Yeah, and
that's kind of cool. I like
yeah,
that.
so I was like, I'm going to experience this movie that supposedly has this reputation of being kind of heavy and possibly, I don't know, shocking in some way. Like I didn't know. I just kind of heard these little tidbits and
So wait.
saw
so
the trailer.
Before you picked it, you didn't see it?
No, this is my first time watching.
No,
the
Okay.
movie.
it was still
Yeah.
in the saran
So
wrap.
was
Yeah.
it recommended to you as like someone said, "Oh man, you're doing cult film podcast, like you got to see this cult film," or was it just recommended to you as just a film that you need to see?
Just as a film I need to see.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
we
where
weren't
I
doing the
sta-
podcast at the time. I don't
Yeah.
think when this was recommended to me, which is why when I bought it, I just was holding on to it, hoping that if we ever did the podcast, it always felt like it was going to happen again. So I was
Mhm.
like, I'm going to save this movie for
Mm.
that experience.
Because definitely watching this film, I was like, I don't know if this is the film that people love and no one else gets. Like as while watching it. So
That's a good point.
I don't know.
It's
I can see
valid.
people not getting this film.
I can see people not
Yeah.
getting it, but I
get-
don't see people
I
like
think people would love this film. I don't know. Okay.
I don't we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first
Mike,
time
have first time watch for Chris. Mike, have you seen this
Oh, it
before?
was definitely a first time watch.
Have you heard of it before?
No, I had never even heard of this film before. I was actually kind of like doing a little history on the background of this. I was kind of disappointed that I hadn't. Like I was like, well, that's weird. Like it was influencing so many other films. I think I read somewhere that that Steven Spielberg screened this movie before he even started shooting Schindler's List, before he wanted to get an idea of how he wanted to write it. I've heard of other very
Saving Private Ryan was the other one.
Saving Private Ryan. It might have been Saving Private Ryan. I don't know.
It was both.
It was
he
both.
Did, he did it for both.
There were a number of other like famous directors that were like, this is the film to watch.
Yeah.
And normally I like follow those lists. Like I'll on the you'll see like Martin Scorsese, the top 100 films he does, and I'll just go down the list. And I'm just really surprised I hadn't even heard of this before.
Yeah.
Kyle, what about you?
No, this is a first time watch for me for sure. In terms of any knowledge prior going into it, the imagery and the cover art stands out. But I've also like been a long time collector of Criterion Collection movies, so like I'm on multiple like newsletter lists and like so it's like these I read about these films, but I don't watch them. But they're like kind of stuck in there as like very top level. So this was really a cold watch for me. So I was excited to see it because all the build up and anticipation of watching this movie was a lot.
Right. My first time watch as well. I had never heard of this movie. It never came across my radar. And then so when Chris picked it, and I was like, okay. And I kind of like got the reputation background from him. I was like, all right. And then I was like, let me kind of figure out what I'm getting into. So let me do a little bit of research into this film. And then I was like, okay, like, all right, okay. I guess we're doing an anti-war film, and that's it was not really what I was expecting from what we started, but like as far as discussion went, because I was expecting something more of a cult film rather than an anti-war film.
Were you expecting more of like a Holy Mountain?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was, yeah.
The way that it was built up to me, I honestly was anticipating some level of just visceral,
right?
Because of the subject matter that would be like in line with something like a Salo, maybe, or something like that.
I agree. But then when I looked it up, and then like Mike said, it's really weird. It's like it's on literally so many lists of like the greatest film of all time or one of the greatest films of all time. It's like always in like the 40s, the 60 range. I see it in.
Yeah.
From what I was looking at, but like, just like Mike, I'm like, then how have I never fucking heard of this movie?
Yeah,
like it's on all these lists, which it is, but I have never heard of it, and I thought that was also strange as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen
it. Can hide in like this, like these prestigious lists, and still it just doesn't, like, for whatever reason, stand out. I admit, same here. Like I'd never heard of it, never even seen the cover art or anything. Maybe if Criterion didn't put it out, I would have never, even heard of this movie. So
never heard. No one had never heard of it. None of us. All right. Well, you know what? It's
what a segue.
It's a great segue. It's time for everybody's favorite part of the show, which is plots and shots with Mike.
Okay. Come and see.
That was a live.
I figured I'd start this off with just giving a really, really brief history of like where the setting of this film takes place. So this takes place during the German invasion, the Nazi invasion of Belarus, right? After they had basically conquered Poland, they started working their way up to the USSR, and Belarus is kind of like borders Poland, right? And this just takes place during that time, right? The Nazis have kind of come in. It starts off with a young boy. His name is I'm going to mispronounce this multiple times. Fliora, right? They're playing on the beach. They're digging around and stuff like that. There are all kinds of rifles and stuff. This is basically where some sort of trench battle had taken place, right? He ends up finding a rifle while he's there, and he decides he wants to essentially, quote unquote, kind of enlist, I would say. Although I would say he was kind of more conscripted, maybe, to join the Soviet Partisans, which is the kind of like a military group. It's like a segmented military group that's. Their goal is kind of basically kind of just cause like they're almost like a guerrilla warfare, I guess is the best way I can describe it. They're not necessarily like soldiers of the USSR directly combating the Nazis, but they're there to fuck around with like supply chains and whatnot, right? So they show up. They basically take him kind of by force to join this partisan group, and while they go off to go battle, he is left behind, and in the midst of that, their camp is attacked by Nazi aircraft. Him and Glasha, this other girl that's a little older than he is, end up essentially trying to just kind of survive out in this now war-torn Belarus. And it's essentially all the trials and tribulations that they have to go through, and that's pretty much what this film is essentially about. It's about the horrors of war, seen through the eyes of a child.
Let me ask a question,
Yeah.
just so I know. I should have done more research, but this is loosely a biography or autobiography of the writer.
Yeah,
Loosely based on a book.
It's loosely based on accounts of things that actually
Yes,
happened.
Right.
Because I thought it was like kind of firsthand.
No. Like I think some of the stories that he got to. I remember hearing that this was played, I think in the USSR somewhere, and an ex-Nazi soldier had jumped up and said, all of the things that happened in this film are true.
Right.
And I am ashamed, and my family should be ashamed that this film is even being shown. And like that's a story that I recall hearing as I was kind of doing research from this film. But yeah, it's there are moments in this film that apparently are taken from real life accounts.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a book I think called Out of the Fire that this guy wrote. I think it was Adamovic. And I think it also was combined with Elem Klimov's like personal experiences escaping Stalingrad.
Yes.
And so like it's kind of a mix of like the two experiences, but like very, very set in reality, like what really happened, like and how it actually things went down. So
All right, Mike, that was the plot. But how about the shot? What are we sipping on tonight?
Okay, so normally I do like an inspired cocktail for the film. It didn't feel right to do that with this film. Unless I wanted to make the most bleak cocktail I could possibly think of. So this film it doesn't really glorify any sides here. Like it is an anti-war film, right? If there's any heroes in the film, it's the people of Belarus, right? So I went out and I tried to find like a cocktail that was maybe from Belarus, right? While I wasn't able to find one, I was able to find apparently a traditional drink that is drank in Belarus.
Okay.
I am going to mispronounce this. I cannot find this even how you pronounce this online, other than it's pronounced Krumbambulia. I believe. Krumbambulia.
Okay.
This one's going to be fun because I haven't even tasted this.
Okay.
It's
It smells-
essentially a
smells amazing.
vodka-based
Oh,
drink.
it smells cinnamon.
ooh, I like it.
That's right. Let's try a sip here.
Okay, here we go.
Very cinnamony. Very cinnamony. I
You know
like
what
it.
that reminds me of?
Ooh, that's good.
It's
You
almost
like
like
that?
it's like
Okay,
a
it's
Christmas
not bad.
drink. Yep.
It reminds me of that mulled cider and mulled wine, but with
Yeah.
vodka.
So that's basically how it was described
Kinda
when I
potpourri.
read it. Is that it is essentially a mulled wine, except it uses vodka.
A mulled vodka.
I heard
cool.
that you can use any spirit really, but I felt like vodka made the most sense because it's like in
So
Russian.
did you just put mulling spices in vodka?
Essentially, it is. Yeah, you basically take water and vodka and you boil it,
It's
right?
definitely
And then
mostly
you put
vodka.
in things like cinnamon, not cinnamon, cloves,
Yeah.
Cloves,
nutmeg,
that's what I'm taking.
allspice,
A lot of vodka.
A lot of vodka.
and then you add in another cup of vodka.
Yeah, you do.
There's also honey
before he served it.
sweetens this.
Yeah.
It's a honey-based cocktail, which I feel like I could have used a little bit more honey. Maybe I didn't put
This is
enough.
fucking good.
No, that's good.
I would,
Second,
I would
third
put
drink,
this as
it's
perfect. This
perfect.
is a
Yeah.
perfect drink.
It's not too sweet. You can keep drinking it because of those
I
cloves.
would revisit this around wintertime because this is one of those drinks
100%.
that
It
like,
definitely feels like
warms you
a
the
Christmas,
fuck up.
Right.
a Christmas cocktail.
Yeah.
And I even read that you can drink this hot. You can actually
Oh yeah.
drink it boiled.
I actually
or-
think this
or
would be
whatever.
great hot.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, yeah.
I kept it cool. I also it said that you're supposed to kind of let this kind of mull around for about 10
yeah,
days.
like what I do with
This one's I mulled it for 4, so it's
4
probably
days.
not quite as complex or
Yeah.
So you
in-
boil the
infused.
water and vodka, you add the spices, and then it sits for cooled for 10 days.
Yeah, you boil it, you get the spices kind of mold in there, and then you
I kinda wanna
strain them
crock
out,
pot it.
and then you add more
I
vodka.
want to try this
and
as a
then-
crock pot. Like,
Yeah, crock
do
pot it.
vodka
I thought about
and
doing
molding
it.
and let it run for like
Yeah.
a day. Yeah.
I didn't want to fuck around with changing up the
I'll
cooking
do it.
process.
I've got so much
but
molding spices
yeah.
at home. I'm gonna try
Dude,
this.
he's got nothing but Mullen to waste.
Bro, can I be honest? Like, got into molding spices real hard.
Yeah, it's like a real big.
It
fan.
shows. This
Real
is
fan.
delicious.
Yeah, I thought it's pretty good. I'm glad that this came out right because
This
I
is
had
great.
no idea how this was going to come out. All right,
There it is.
There
All
it
right,
is.
guys.
There's
Well,
our
let's
shot.
talk about Come and See. All right. So the film it opens up introducing our main character, this young Belarusian boy who is digging through, as Mike said, digging through the sand, looking for a rifle with another young boy from the village that he's from. It's
Mhm.
obvious that apparently the fight was not that far from their house
no,
at some point.
because is this the village elder that is
Yes.
telling him? Yes,
That's yelling at them.
Okay, I was
not
wondering
to
if that
dig,
was
because
village
they're
elder
Yeah.
or if that was like a dad or
Basically,
something.
he's saying like, don't do this because you're going to call attention to us.
Yes.
Right, exactly. He's worried that the German soldiers are going to be like, "Why are you digging up here?"
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah.
what I took it as it was you have to dig up a weapon before you can join the resistance. So you had to
Yes.
have a rifle ready.
Yeah.
And so that's what
Right.
he's intentionally trying to
Yeah.
join the resistance.
And I was gonna say he seems pretty to me like adamant to join the
very
partisans.
adamant.
He's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
adamant to join this. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, so Fleora, we get introduced to him, his weird friend who's
Right.
like doing he's imitating a German.
imitating
He's,
Germans,
yeah, he's
yeah.
pretending
Yeah.
like he's a German.
So-
soldier.
Or in a dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
at one
At
point.
one
I mean,
point.
they're playing
Both.
they're playing kids games. They're
Yeah.
just being children.
Instantly, you can say this film is shot
Holy shit!
Well,
amazingly,
first, yeah,
just
you-
off of
yeah.
the just opening shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting the I think it was 137 aspect, which is like portrait style.
Mhm.
So everything looks like a photograph, basically.
And I will say too, like I know haven't gotten into the question of whether this is a cult film or anything like that. If for things that would appeal to cult film fans, things like really out there kind of like cinematography, very unusual
Right.
shot choices and stuff like that. This is a very right off the bat, like these shots are very intense. They're very close up.
Yeah.
They're almost like Jonathan Demme shots. Like it's almost like you're just
I was
seeing
thinking like Sergio
yeah.
Leone too. He does
Well,
a lot of those real deep. You
just
can like
they're very
see the pores
aggressive.
of the
Yeah.
fucking
They
face
make
kind of
the
shot.
audience part of the movie right away by having the characters stare directly into the camera and
Yeah.
like talk and act at them. But then they're actually talking to people in the scene, but like putting you there right in front of their face doing
Yeah.
that like draws you in as part of the story.
See, this is where even from the get-go, I have a disconnect from this film. And I think number one, not my type of movie. I'll say that as a precursor for everybody. Art house films are just not my thing. It's not a thing I love. But also going into this, I had such a guard up because of the reputation that I was reading online,
Yeah.
that I got from the description of this film, and I was put this guard up because I'm expecting to see some very horrific shit.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm expecting to see. Now, granted, I think that hindered my watching of this film, and I say that because I felt no personal or human connection to the main character from the beginning of this film to the fucking very end of this film. Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
No. I think it has a lot to do with those shots,
Uh-huh.
with those film shots,
Yeah.
and things like that. And also, again, the guard I have up because I'm taking myself out of this to watch this movie because, in my head, I got a little boy at home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm gonna see, what horrific things I'm gonna see. I can't put him in this place
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that because that's just not the mental state as a person I want to be in.
Yeah.
So I was not gonna put myself there. So like I said, this is a fair warning as I describe this film and talk to you guys about this film. That's kind of my mindset going into this. And then the other thing too is like I think mentally I set the bar extremely high, and the reason I think that is because of the society that we live in today and what we can see today. Like, I get on X or Twitter, and I can guarantee you I've seen, just scrolling, not even looking for it, things way more horrific than anything depicted in this film, with things that are going on in the world today.
Oh, you mean like real war stuff?
Yes, real war stuff.
You can see actual.
It just will pop up in your feed. So my mind's already seen the real shit of, again, like, I've seen little kids' legs blown off.
Yeah, sure.
Piles of bodies. You will just come across this stuff on social media.
Yeah.
So again, in my head, the bar is set very high. So I have to, I'm closed off from, I think, having an emotional experience with these characters. And because I am sitting there like, where's this going to go? Because again, people are like you read about it and people are like, this is the most horrific horror film you will ever see. And while it's horrific because this fucking shit happened in real life, but it's still going on today. And I am seeing it in real time.
Yeah.
In maybe not in real life, but enough to where it makes it seem closer than this film did.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point you bring up, because the fact of the world we live in, the connected world we're in, it's like movies that want to make an impact have to push the boundaries. I feel like even harder nowadays because we're just being exposed to real horrors all the time. So it's like for a film to really impact or have the desired effect, say you'd have to see it at a different time maybe. To appreciate it. But I agree with you. I had this thought when I was watching it too, which is like the cinematography is the shining star of this film, and like the POV storytelling element really like helps to pull you into the film, I think. But I also thought it added this undesired effect, which is it made the movie start to feel like a documentary kind of in parts. And it's like almost like when it becomes the difference between watching a narrative and a documentary, it's like the mindset that you're in is a little bit different. So like the level of connection that I have to a character gets slightly faded when it's kind of a documentary, because then I'm mostly thinking about the historical elements of it is where the emotional draw comes from. And
I think for me, I don't know that your experience is
right
like that. I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to say like, you got it wrong. I think the one thing that's powerful about cinema when it comes to telling stories like this, which differ from social media, is being able to essentially see a story through like the thoughts and feelings of that individual character, and like see a journey as it progresses, right? Because like, I don't think that this film is necessarily like, let's document the horrible things that happened during the occupation of Belarus by the Nazis, as much as it's about a story of this boy that gets caught up in the war and what it does to him. I mean, even the cover of the film, it's very meant to be kind of show that like the war aged this kid. And you see this kid change from the beginning of the film to the end. And then, of course, like, we'll get into it when we get to the end of the film. But, like, there is a message here that is to be learned about, taking young children and throwing them into war and using them as soldiers. Like, what does that do to you psychologically and stuff like that? Those are things that you rarely get to see unless you're listening to a documentary or something where those types of soldiers are talking about their experiences, right? You're not going to see that so much in like actual war footage. I mean, you can imply it, certainly. Like, you can see, you're like, holy shit, that kid's like 12, he looks like he's 28. Like, what the fuck happened? You know, like, you can imply that for sure. But I feel like with this film, so much of this is let's track this child and see like how he experiences war.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, just getting a clip in your X feed is not going to give you any context to, like, you're just going to see gore and violence and be like, that makes me sad. Whereas with this, it's like, okay, no, but this is like how a person lives through a situation, that is.
But I'm also watching
horrific.
those people on social media live through those horrific situations.
Right,
Like,
but
it's
they're
no,
not
it's no,
such
it's such,
fragments,
but same
But
with
they
this movie. This movie
rarely-
is a snippet in this boy's life.
But they rarely get a chance to tell you their story in terms of how that made them.
What story
feel
is he?
personally.
What story is he telling otherwise from how it basically caused him PSD throughout the thing? Again, where is your story of hope? Like it goes from yes, like I'm taking it. I'm going to get revenge for my father's death. That's kind of what I got from him. That's why he was excited to go into war.
Sure, right. I mean, there's the attitude of I should join the military and join to fight the fight against the Nazis.
Yeah. I took it as maybe because like his mother does not want him to go. We have the whole conversation between his mother who doesn't want to go, which I took that more or less that she didn't want him to go. Not because she didn't want to see him die in the war. She did not want him to go because her chances and her daughter's chances, their whole family's chances of survival are better with him around.
Yeah, with a male
in the house and a male around. Which is just another psychologically crazy fucking thing to think about, like, of self-preservation.
But don't you think that story alone, had a child soldier told that story, my mother didn't want me to join the military, you would have thought that she would because my father was killed or whatever, that story alone is something that you wouldn't get just from seeing a bomb go off on social media.
That's not really... I guess that's not really... No, because I guess my mind goes into that story, that narrative myself, when I instantly see a country or people who, face these kind of atrocities. I don't know if it's just like... like my movie mind, American mind, or whatever, but I honestly think like those kids who do grow up are going to grow up hating whatever country or people that bomb them, that cause this life, are going to hate them and want revenge.
You might think that, but that's not always the case.
So the partisans show up to recruit him, and for the first chunk of him being part of this group, I love he has just this shit-eating grin on his face because he's so ignorant to what's about to happen. He's just like, I'm in the military. He's just smiling and happy.
They kind of presented that way too, though, when he goes like, they even say, oh, it's kind of like a camp, like a summer camp. And if when you're first introduced to the partisans camp, it is like that. Everyone's partying and kind of doing this and that. And
it's very much like a Robin Hood feel.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah. I do think that the first initial meeting that we see of the partisans that come to take him to the camp, there is an impending, like, you realize that, like, hey, maybe these bad guys aren't very nice people. Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were Nazis as well. Sorry, I'm glad you brought that up.
I didn't think they were Nazis. I just kind of was just like, oh, they're like, these people are not exactly, they're not people you want to hang out with in a room.
But the way they set that whole thing up, where they're peering through the window, and the way he reacts, where he walks around the corner and starts pounding on this front door, like saying, "Mama, Mama." I'm like, what's gonna happen? Like, they're coming after him, and then as they come in and talk, they kind of like loosen it up a little bit. It's a really interesting way that they
bully their way through this whole thing. These soldiers, you can tell that these guys.
I always took that as a ruse.
You think it was a ruse?
Yeah, because they performed and acted as they threw him out of the house as like,
oh yeah,
as we've got one, we found one, and they like haul him off.
They didn't have to take her chickens.
No, they didn't, but that's part of the thing.
I mean, but like
they just steal whatever food they need. That's kind of evident in later on in the film.
And whether or not they are like trying to be shown that they feel like this is a requirement, right? Hey, we need this for the war effort. Sorry, lady, we're taking this chicken, right? Yeah. But there's also aspects of like the kind of larger soldier that tries to cheer up the children.
Yeah.
And he asks for milk, and then they make some joke about how they don't really actually drink, which I'm sure was not necessarily true. And then they say something to the effect of,
drinks that whole thing of milk.
I believe the line is something, we only drink during the holidays, and then the older soldier looks at the little kids and goes, or at a wake.
Yeah.
As if that's supposed to like make these crying children better. And I don't know if it's a disconnect because they're so war broken that they don't know how to like function around children, or if they're just like, yeah, we're just coming in here and we're taking our shit because this is what we need for the war effort. Like, that's what we're gonna do.
I'm glad you brought this scene up because this is actually a scene that by the end of the film I looked back on as like kind of a WTF because I couldn't understand what the tone was that was trying to be set with these gentlemen. Like, again, because it's like ripped in 900 different directions. I was like, I thought maybe they were Nazis. And then I was like, okay, they're not Nazis. And then it was like, they're good guys. Well, okay, they're not good guys. And then it was like it kind of just established like if you're not in some sort, if you're not with the Nazis or you're not with the partisans, you are a lesser than citizen. It is just kind of factual of whatever this
Right, but
world
I
is.
guess my
Yeah.
question is, doesn't that give you the feeling that the direction that the director is trying to make you feel right now is that there is no good side here, that like you're kind of stuck?
No,
if you're in a
at this-
war-torn
no,
scenario,
be-
you're
I
stuck.
guess no, because I was sitting there emotionally trying to figure out what the fuck was going on, and
Sure,
I
it's
think,
early in the film.
I think it's also this part of the scene. This is such a weird. Again, it's a foreign film, so you got to expect the acting and the dialogue to be pretty much a little different than what you're used to. So I was still trying to figure out like, is this like some sort of Soviet era sense of humor I'm not really picking up on, or the
I
dialogue?
understand that. I understand
I'm
that.
like,
I
this
can
is very
understand that.
weirdly acted, and
Okay.
I don't, I'm still trying to figure it out.
I mean,
are these the good guys? Are they not the good
To
guys?
me, I feel like there
Good
are
adjacent.
choices that the director made within this that would lead you to believe that they're not. Like, they didn't have to show the children crying. They didn't have to show the mother absolutely losing it. They didn't have to show them throwing the mother to the ground and stealing their chickens. He could have made, if he was trying to cast these soldiers as pure good hero types of people, they did not actually have to show any of that. He could have made that choice because this is a piece of cinema. It's a film. It's not a documentary.
I want to come back to this, like stealing chickens, throwing the mother down throws. Like they say something to him before they go out the door. Like, okay, you ready? Like, just the
Sure.
whole thing was a performance.
Yeah, that's what I
It was
saw kind
all
of as
acting.
too.
But here's the thing, though. The kid, I believe he even says at one point in time, she's like, "Why would you have signed up to do this thing?" And he says straight up, he's like, "It's not as if I was going to have a choice anyways. They're just taking people."
Right, which at that time, during World War II, no historian of World War II would probably make sense.
It would make sense too for them to pretend like they're taking him, because then if Nazis came around, it's like we're not recruiting anyone; they're just stealing people from the village. Is what I could assume.
We've done this in the United States, right? There was a draft here during the Vietnam War. We took people and we signed them up. I don't think it was done in the same way that maybe this was done, right? I don't think there was a log. I think they just showed up and they walked in and they said, "You got any like kids? You got anybody?"
He was waiting for him.
Yeah,
man.
but
he was
specifically
excited.
requested to
You are
join
coming with
because
me.
he found the gun.
I understand that, but my what I'm trying to say is, I yes, just because he was like felt like he was going to go doesn't mean that people at that during this time weren't just being taken anyway.
I don't know.
No,
that,
he
though.
already knew.
I can only go off what I see in the movie.
So
though.
I kind of disagree with Kyle a little bit. He already knew he was going. The Floria.
Fleora. Yeah.
Already knew he was going to go.
Yes,
That's the reason he's
100%.
looking for the gun. He's trying to get a gun before they
100%.
fucking take him. He knows.
Yeah.
Okay,
he's
yeah.
going.
Right.
You think that?
Oh yeah.
I think he seemed like
was
he seemed
expecting
like
it.
he wanted to do it because his friend was like, "No, man, you got to find a gun, otherwise they're not going to take you. You got to have your own gun."
So, anyways, but they do make it like a performance. Think about it. They pull him out. They throw him in the back, and like he's in like the back of that like
They beat
cart
him.
Then the
thing.
mom,
They
the
beat him.
mom's
They
like,
punch him in
"Come
the
on,
face.
let's go say bye." And then their version of saying bye is, "Please, no, don't take him
Right.
now."
Yeah.
And they're like,
So,
"Bye."
but the whole time, Fleora's like he's into it because he wants to go be a part of the partisans. He's even making fun of the town elder on his way out. He's saying
he's
something.
an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. He's so he's very naive as to what
extremely naive.
what is coming.
And his grin on his face is, I feel like the director's way of trying to convey that. It's
So, yeah,
just
he
the
gets
level of naive.
He gets to the camp, and then from there.
So we're at the camp where he's basically told like, "Hey, you know what? You're too young, anyways. So clean this."
Yeah.
And this is where again I have another disconnect with this film when he meets a Galasha, which is a nurse who's working. It's a younger teenage girl who's working as a nurse for the partisans.
She was a nurse?
She was.
I mean, she was essentially. I mean, whether she was actually a nurse by profession before the war.
No,
or
I'm just
not,
saying.
she was made a nurse.
I didn't pick up that was the role she played here.
Yeah, there's a moment where right when he comes in, there's a guy and he's saying something to the effect, "I'm being flayed alive. You're tearing my skin off my bones," or something to that effect. I'm assuming he
That was her?
got an injury. Right. He looks off and there's a really aggressive shot of her just kind of looking up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that's her. And it's
I
hard.
thought that was a different person.
It's a little different to tell. It's hard to tell because it kind of, I guess you would say it doesn't really exactly follow the 180 rule here. It's kind of like he looks out, and then it's a really aggressive,
like close up,
super hot, heavy
straight
close
up.
up of her, and you can tell she's wearing some sort of kind of white hat.
Yeah,
So
I know
yeah.
what you're talking about.
So he's cleaning out pots and pans and big old pans that he can fit in. There's a weird scene where she throws some flowers in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's this weird, I don't know where it's at, and this again, this movie is actually pretty jumbled for me. There's this whole like weird thing where they're looking at each other with the guy who runs the Partisans, and he's staring at them, and it almost gives you this impression like Flora's looking at her very angelically, like she's angelic is like the kind of the impression that I get. And then you got him, you got the leader guy kind of looking at the younger boy like, don't look at my woman. It's kind of how I took it.
That was the vibe I got.
Definitely got that vibe too. I thought something was going on.
That's what I feel like that's what led to him being left behind.
She makes a point too at some point in time a little later where it leads you to believe that she has a pretty in-depth understanding about this. I think his name's Cossack, right?
Yeah, Cossack. Yeah.
I assume they
his
had some kind of relationship of some
too.
kind, and Fliora just caught on to the fact that they had a thing, and so he just happened to notice. I don't think Fliora.
I think he got caught up in the stare.
I don't think he really had anything more to think about that other than like what's going on here. But then when he runs into Glasha later, then he's like, "What's going on?"
I got the impression it was love at first sight. From
Really?
the way that the cinematography was,
because he kind of pushes her away, like coming up.
When they're crying together in the field.
I think there's a connection. I don't.
She tries to kiss him.
Yeah, I don't know the immediate. And I also let me also take this as he's a young boy who's probably never been with a woman ever in his life. So it's a very aggressive thing to happen. And he, his mindset's in the war too at this point. Like this is a point where I guess we missed this part. There's a moment where everybody's ready to go out and kind of do like a mission or something like that, and there's this older guy with no shoes. He's like they're rotted.
They're falling apart.
They're falling apart, and he says, "Well, my shoes are all rotten up." And he's like, "Take the young boys. He can stay here with the women," basically thing. Which he takes, of course, immediately. I was like, "Fuck!" Like they think I'm a child.
Yeah, he takes it as demoted.
He's offended.
Right.
Yeah, he's like offended by all of this, right? And he goes and he sees Glasha and she's crying, and he kind of joins in on the cry.
Well, he was crying his whole way there because they left him behind, which I understand the storytelling element of it. It was like, this is a boy, but then I also question the character choice of it. Like it's I don't know.
For someone who's so adamant to go fight and then to basically be like, no, you can't. You're staying back here and give us your shoes.
Yeah.
Like, I think he was just like, oh my
be
God.
Like, but I'm a man. It's a very boy thing to do. It is.
Sure.
It is a very boy thing to do, but I'm also like, I think more or less like with the character, when they do get bombed or something like that, you would expect some element of him trying to be a little heroic at some point in this movie, which does happen way later on. But even at this point, but it's. I mean, he is what he is. He's a boy.
I don't think he knows how to be a hero. Like
no, and I don't think he is a hero. I don't think he is a hero of this film. I don't think anybody's
But I
a
also
hero.
think that is kind of part of the anti-war thing that this film is trying to tell is that like it's not like that. Like everybody thinks they're gonna go into war and be like, I'm gonna go fight it. But the reality of things is that like no, you're not fucking ready for what you're about to see. And this kid thinks he's ready now, and he's being immediately told like you're a child, just stay here and take care of the women.
Him, just being told no. Like
his expectations have been shattered.
It hits home the thing that he is a child.
And let's talk about Glasha and what she says during this scene too, right? So she's crying for a completely different reason, right? Like she's crying because she's talking about how all she wants to do is start a family and fall in love and stuff like that. And I guess you could take this scene a lot of different ways. But I kind of took it as like maybe that she is honestly saying this stuff right now, and like, look, war has probably made that absolutely impossible at this point.
Right. It has.
Yeah.
Right. So like, all the things that she's wanting for and stuff like that, and then you see him start crying, and then she starts laughing. She like there's.
Well, it's because
they
he
cry
asked,
together
He
and-
asks the question, like, what was that about, that stare back there? And then she flips, like, from that point and gets mad at him, basically, for calling that out. And then that's when she starts to say, he took pity on you. They left you behind because you're just a boy, blah, blah, blah. And that's when it turns into, like, an anger, you know?
Right.
So.
There's so many emotions that go through this entire scene.
this
And then
one scene,
her just even kissing the kid, you know? Which
and he shoves her away, like he's like, I'm not here for that, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't even think he knows how to respond to that. I mean, that's such an
he just falls
aggressive
back
thing
on,
to do.
you know, he's like, I'm here to fight. I'm not here for this, you know.
So then she steals his gun and they start running around in the forest.
Well, and not to mention the fact that she tried to take his grenade at one point in time and
Oh.
blow herself up.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh
She's
my
like she's either like
So, that
fucking around with him on a level that
No.
would make anyone uncomfortable, or she is so kind of unhinged from this
That's what
whole
I kinda
environment
think it is.
that it's like
Here's kind of me putting everything together just in this discussion and kind of looping it all back around, right? So I think what it was with her is I do think she had a relationship with the older gentleman, Koshek.
I think it's
Yes.
I think
I
so.
think she has, and we have to assume that if that's the case, then she's probably been with this unit for a while, and she's actually probably experienced more things in PTSD throughout this already. I think maybe as a young girl she may have gotten clingy, and he left her. Koshek left her behind to distance himself from her during this time of war because she does want a thing like family, children. And he's obviously like, bro, I could die any second.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
there's
There
no
could be an element of him trying
There's
to,
no way.
trying to protect her as well.
right. So he leaves her behind.
Yeah.
He leaves her behind to spare her and this young boy because he's a young boy. He shouldn't be going to war. Let's spare them. But they meet back up with the partisans at the end, and I think that's kind of like again, that's just the safety net of being in a large group.
I took it. That's so funny. I got the.
I'm just putting this all together
Yeah,
now.
no. I hear you. And I'm not disagreeing. I'm just my interpretation of it was that the partisan general or soldier felt a level of jealousy by her staring at the little boy like there's someone new.
I think,
and that's why he immediately was like, take the kid's shoes. He can stay behind.
No.
And it was a punishment of that. And then leaving her behind was the same.
No,
That's how
I
I took it.
don't think that's a punishment because again, if I'm in charge of a resistance fighting group, and I am taking grown ass men with me into battle, I would want them to have the best equipment as well. And if his shoes are fucking falling apart, and we got to imagine this is cold ass Russia.
Yeah.
I think
we
he
should
knew,
probably have
look,
some better shoes.
I think bottom line, he knew that the kid wasn't ready because the night
Yeah.
before he didn't pull the trigger in the woods on him. Remember,
Ooh,
he showed
I
up and he
forgot
said,
about
That is-
that.
he
that
said
is a
you
big
always
scene.
shoot if you
Yeah.
don't give somebody doesn't give the password.
Yeah.
Wait, was that
yeah.
was that Glasha that follows him?
Yep.
up?
Yeah.
So yeah, they were out in the woods fucking screwing or something.
Yeah, they were banging already. And
Yeah,
then the
that-
next day she's staring
yeah.
at him.
I think that he was already like, you're not ready. I'm not even going to take you. Like, but you're going to give your shoes up because you fucked up last night.
Yeah.
I think it was more about that. I don't actually think
I
he even
forgot about
noticed
that
the
scene.
kid
I
was
definitely do,
acting.
and I think that the filmmaker makes a definite point to make this like the oldest possible dude, right? That he gives the shoes to, right?
Mhm,
Like
yeah.
the big insult here is that like also like this is like if there's any jokes in this entire film, like this might be the closest thing to
Yeah.
a thing of humor is that this old man who can barely stand up straight is like, hey man, I need new shoes, and it's like, you young boy.
Hurry up.
Give your shoes to this very kind of old and decrepit man because I think he's going to be more competent out there than even you will be, and I think that's a big insult to him
I
as
don't,
well.
Man,
Yeah.
see, I didn't take it that way.
I mean, it could have been anybody, dude.
I mean, it
The
could have been.
oldest guy in the group.
But no, it could have been anybody asking for new boots, and I think he would have gave him the boots. Like, I don't think that. I honestly don't think it that mattered. I don't think it was
Nah,
an insulting
I didn't
thing.
think that deep on it, but
I
Well,
didn't think,
I'm just saying that I think that there's a reason why he chose like a
I
really,
think he
really
chose-
old
I think-
dude.
the old
I think
dude
he
stepped
chose
up
the-
and said he's the one who stepped out of the crowd though. And
No,
said,
I think he
you're
chose
saying,
Flora.
Mike's saying the director chose
Yeah, like,
the
like,
old
he had
dude.
he made a
specifically
choice to
chose
put a
the
really
old
like an
guy.
80-year-old guy. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
guy that
Okay.
Because
you know.
yeah, you're right. This is the only part of the film where I thought to myself, that's kind of funny. Like the old man is the one that gets to go, who can barely walk. Yeah. I was right there with you.
There it is, right
There
there
you
with
go.
you. So for me, then when we get into the next part, this is where I think one of my least favorite and favorite things of this movie happened with this movie. So Sounds give me sensory overload. I have ADHD, and
Okay.
sounds give me sensory overload.
Mhm.
So when the bombs drop and we start getting, this is where we start really getting the mix of like just fucking no, I don't know any way other to describe it than noises. Dogs barking, bombs going off, just fucking piercing. Because he goes deaf, and they do a really good job of sound design. What I'm saying is, the sound design drove me personally fucking insane. But that is exactly what it's supposed to do,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
which is fucking brilliant.
Absolute chaos.
It-
You don't know where you are. You don't know where you're
to the
standing.
place to this place.
It did.
It really did
The sound
transport me away.
design
And
takes you there. I feel almost more than the visual.
the way that the way that the sound design of this film goes basically to muted, and then slowly throughout the rest of the film starts to kind of
You
get
get
a
his
little
hearing
bit,
back.
because as his hearing's kind of
Yeah.
come back. I thought it was brilliant.
I also think there's that shot where you can see the Nazi soldier dangling a
Yeah.
paratrooper that had dangled in the tree, and there's just like such a weird chaos about it.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know what he's even looking at. Do I shoot this guy? I don't know what
Right.
I'm doing. Do I run? Like it's just
Well, and let's just even like focus in on the fact that yes, the sound plays a huge role in this. And I actually watched this movie twice. The second time with headphones on because I feel like I had missed something about the film. Like and I certainly did because when I put the fucking headphones on, I was in a whole different like soundscape, like probably experiencing more close to what you were experiencing, Cody, where you said you were just so overwhelmed because it's
Right.
like, yes, there is like these swells of tones and sounds and screeching sounds and screaming and like so many things like, and even just the sounds of the bombs exploding sounds so real and intermixed with the fact that the imagery, like the way they shot, like, I mean, we're at the scene now where Fleora and Gloss are in the woods. This is when you first see the bombs go off in this movie, and you're right there. The camera is right freaking there, and the mud is flying in, around, and over you as it's panning, and it really puts you there.
would not be shocked if they actually detonated real bombs.
I think
Well,
everything's
it looks
real.
like they sure did.
Damn.
I
So
think
I will-
everything's real in this
there
movie.
are real
Yeah.
things in this. There's a scene later on with a cow. There's
Yeah.
a thing. They actually did use live rounds, and I think one of the actors made a comment or something that got into press or something that like there were actual literal bullets whizzing past our heads.
Yes.
Like there were, we were supposed to keep down, but sometimes we didn't.
No, for this kid, the main actor, for him to be, he's not like he's an amateur actor.
Yeah, I don't think he had
For-
almost no experience of
He
anything.
had to go through some shit to get those facial expressions you get from this
Yeah.
kid throughout the movie. Like you kind of think like, yeah, you really put him through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he probably has PTSD from making this fucking movie. Which is another thing that says something, But no, again, this is where really the sound design comes in and really starts overwhelming my senses as far as what I'm watching. Which is in my personal experience at this point is detaching me even further from this movie because, again, ADHD, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overloaded. I have to move myself out of it if I'm going to pay any attention because I want to turn it off at this point. And not because it's a bad movie or anything like that. I'm just like, dude, this is just, it's too fucking much. And not like, oh, the movie's too much. It's just like too many fucking, sounds. I want to turn
Can I
it
ask you a
off.
question, like just like off-topic question?
Yeah.
Like when you watch a Transformers, like a Michael Bay Transformers, do you just
Same.
absolutely lose it? I
Same.
feel like those films are just like
Get
bombs are-
Get
out of the way, God.
Do you think
I
it's
think
not
that's a
so
whole
much the
film.
amount of sound? It's just like the fact that it was going from like basically ambient, like atmospheric sounds
Right.
to like just straight up explosions in your fucking
Right.
face, like because
And
that's what's happening.
It's not only just explosions. It's like explosion, and then underneath the explosion is a baby that just won't stop fucking crying.
There's a lot
and
of
a dog that just won't stop. It's like every fucking
Mm-hmm.
like, annoying sound you've ever heard is just overlaid in those bombs
Yeah.
that causes such a chaos in my mind,
Yeah.
which is what's going on screen. So
Yeah.
it works perfectly.
100%
I mean, I just thought that was
intentional,
just
too.
such a thing, yeah. Because like you imagine that, like in reality, right? Like films, I don't think take this level of detail to think like, yeah, guess what? You're not the only one hearing the bombs.
Yeah.
Birds are hearing the bombs. Fucking weasels or whatever the fuck are out there. These things are all screaming, screeching, freaking out. Everything is losing it.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine that, like, in a situation like this, you're probably hearing a lot more than just
The trees,
the bomb.
the trees are screaming, right? Because they're cracking and falling,
Yes.
and like,
Oh,
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's and
Dust is
all of it
flying,
was
floating,
all
dirt's
of it was.
Yeah.
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 It was brilliant sound design, and I'm going to keep bringing it up. But I loved, God damn, the plane that keeps flying over.
Oh, we
Yeah.
forgot to bring. I forgot
Oh
I
my
forgot to
God,
talk about that
what
because
a storytelling element.
because-
Like, really tell me you're under siege by this fucking
actually
constant.
no. I was going to ask you the question. At what point do you think that he is just seeing the plane and the plane is not actually there
There's
anymore?
a part in the middle where I start questioning if the plane's there.
I also
Yeah.
after this part in the movie, this is where I also question if I mean they kind of prove it in other things, but I was questioning for a while this was going on after the scene if Glosha was even alive.
Oh, I don't.
Hmm.
I actually,
She is.
Yeah, I don't
She
think it goes
is.
this far. But I
She-
understand why you would think
she
that.
is,
Yeah.
but for the
Okay.
longest, like as I was watching it, I was like, it wasn't until they get to his hometown again,
Yeah.
where even sometimes there I question it. But there's one in particular scene that makes you go, no.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I actually maybe not.
So when they get back to his town, like
They get back to his house.
or his house, well,
yeah.
but
Which
it-
I guess is in a town.
Because
Yeah,
basically,
exactly.
basically,
It is
the
the
parent,
town.
so you see this plane that Kyle brought up. You see it fly over when he finds the gun, right? Which gives him in his mind. I'm thinking I after he gets back to his town, I caused this, and I think that's where it's like that plane is then becomes symbolism rather than it's actually there all the time.
Yeah, because
It shows up like 5 more times.
isn't there a plane that they? Yes, because there is a scene right after the beach. Am I not correct? Scene where they duck down. Like he
Yes,
finds the rifle because.
Well, that's why you think that the
Yes.
Nazis show up to his town is
Right.
because the plane saw him finding the rifle.
So he's immediately making the connection to
Yes.
the elder told me not to dig. He
Right.
said it was going to happen. This shit was going to happen. I somehow I have caused this in some.
Well,
degree.
and he gets the validation for that
Right.
later on. So they're bombed. So basically, what happens at this point? They're bombed, and then he decides like the camp is destroyed. Paratroopers are falling from the sky. Like I need to go home.
Mhm.
Like home is now. That's where it's always been safe. It's safe again. Let's go. We'll get a hot meal there. Everything will be great. They show up. It's a fucking ghost town. And so as a viewer, you know, knowing what this movie is about at this point, you're already like, oh well, they're not there, sweetie. Like they're not there.
but
They're-
him going through those like rationalizations and stuff
It's
like in his
denial.
head, the denial, like while Galasha is taking note of all the things that seem weird like around the
Yeah.
place,
And- And they do such a. So this and then in the subsequent bog scene.
Oh, yeah.
Are my. This is my favorite part of the movie.
Oh.
Because there's the level of details and stuff that they're showing that it's kind of clear at this point that Fliora is like insane. He's kind of lost it. Like he's in absolute denial to a level.
Well,
I
he's
think that
he's
is-
deaf.
He's deaf.
He's deaf, right? But I think this is also bordering on. He has to kind of know in the back of his head that like this
Oh,
is not. None of this
it
is
keeps
right.
it keeps
knows.
popping
Yeah.
up in his head, but I think he keeps smashing it
Well-
with again justification.
Whether-
It's like no, you know.
There's some subtle things that happen that he is unaware of that Glosha is very aware of, or even you as a viewer are aware of, right?
Yeah.
So you get into the house and like it's riddled with flies,
Yeah.
right? And then
tons of bugs. Yeah.
tons of flies all over the place, right? And you're like, that's weird. That's not how the house looked like when there were people in it, right? And then he grabs the stew, right?
Yeah.
And he puts it in. He's like, it's still warm, right? And he puts it down and he goes, oh yeah, my mother made this. And he takes a bite, and then Glosha takes a bite, and then Glosha has a little look on her face, and then he takes another bite, like happily takes it, and then
Yeah.
Glosha retches
Yeah.
and spits it up.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's rotten. It's been there for much longer
Yeah.
than. But in his mind, he's
It's
saying,
still
nope,
warm.
it's warm and delicious. I
candle
don't
was
know what you're
still
talking
burning.
about. And it isn't until he kind of sees the dolls on the floor that you can tell something kind of breaks him a little bit,
Yep.
and he goes outside.
Right.
I will say something. There is a moment, right, when they leave, right, and Glosha
Mhm.
walks off, and then he it's a horrible scene.
He's convinced that
Well, he's
they're on
convinced
the island.
they're
on the island
on
of the bog.
at a let's just call it like a safe space where like the
Yes.
village has decided like
He's
if shit goes
convinced.
down, we all meet here.
So there is a moment in Schindler's List specifically. I think you know there's like the girl in the red dress scene, you know, where like there's she everything is in black and white except for this little girl in a red dress, right? And then there's a scene later on where some bodies are being piled up, and it's all in black and white except for the color
red
of the
dress.
red dress, right?
Yeah.
And I really kind of got in like feeling of that because in this film, the way they do this is that he starts running towards this area. He's like, "Come on, Glosha, we'll go." And Glosha looks back at the house, and there are just piles of bodies.
Yeah, the
up
whole
against
village.
the
Just
wall.
all stacked behind them one.
Here's the thing:
building, yeah.
there is some disconnect as to what Fliora is actually experiencing outside during this time. He's kind of walking back there. I would not be surprised if he saw those bodies and he is still in just absolute fucking denial.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that there's a part of him that knows very deeply that like
because he
this
doesn't
happened.
he doesn't look back.
No.
He doesn't purposefully, right?
Purposely,
And then
yeah.
they keep going, and then I mean, I guess can we get?
And that's where
anybody want to talk about it?
That's where we get to the bog where you say you this is what you like that scene a lot.
I love this scene because the way the camera moves, the way everything is happening,
it felt so panicked. It
the
felt
way the
so
actor
real.
is.
Yeah.
It was panicked but slow motion at the same time
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
The bog.
look at how thick that mud is. Like, how the fuck are you gonna like one kid's wading through it while this girl's like holding on to him basically?
Yeah, and
like,
it's this
And she's trying so desperately to be like, stop. And
she's not trying
here.
that hard for that. I don't. This is one thing I didn't understand is why she didn't. Why did she even go that far when she saw all the bodies? Were piled up there?
I mean, cause I think in my like, where's she going?
Yeah, maybe.
Where
yeah,
else?
it could just be
Like,
like that.
She's got a kid who has at least some sort of like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, he's the
but
only
then she
person
kind of
she
flips
knows.
on
Yeah.
him after they make it through the mud.
he does because he tries to strangle her.
He
He
throws
her
in
back
and then
into the
then
bog,
gets
right?
her out.
And that's because she straight up tells him, "Your family is fucking dead. I
Right.
just saw them. They're all dead. They're not over here."
yeah.
And again, like
Yeah.
if he did see this and he knows it, like this is the thing he has been trying to desperately avoid, and
Yeah.
she is telling him straight up and reconciling what he just saw.
Yeah. And
right?
keep in mind, he's still thinking that this is possibly his fault from digging.
Yes, like
Yes.
there's. And to me too, the bog just represents kind of like I don't know, it's dirty and it's the waiting.
So
What's
I think it's like a
interesting-
sense of
What's
insanity
interesting
that's
is
going
I
on
feel like I didn't connect that he knew it was his fault from digging until he talks to the elder. Until he talks
well, yeah,
to
'cause
the
the
elder,
elder
is
straight
when
up tells him.
he puts
Yeah.
it. Is when he realizes what he caused for everything. At this point, he has no idea that him digging up the rifle is the reason why the village is dead.
So the only reason I say that I'm convinced is this scene that Glosha is still alive is because the guy who comes to take them to where the survivors are,
Yeah.
I think he references her first.
Oh,
If
he
there-
does.
if
He goes
it-
straight for her.
If that wasn't there, then
Yeah.
I would have been like, she's dead. She's been dead this whole time, and he is not
Right.
Yeah.
gotten over her death.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with the bog scene because as the whole time I was watching it, like this to me was the director focused way too long on it for me, and like by the end of it, it was too dramatic for me. Like it was almost comical because we're like, "Ah!" and it's like these big, long, huge movement, and I just like it was. I mean, they trudged through this bog, which feels like 5 fucking minutes, and it's like, and I'm like, yeah, it's really muddy. Like, okay, like, all right, okay, and then they start doing that. I'm like, all right, we're overacting at this point,
Yeah.
and this is like where I felt like the only time in the movie where I felt like the acting was just.
You and Sammy,
A
you
little
and,
too
you, you and
much.
Sammy had the same exact
I
thought
just
process
think it's
because
like-
Sammy saw when we got to the bog and it panned around and you saw the section that doesn't have mud and she's like, why the fuck didn't they go that way? Like,
Right.
why'd they go through
I mean,
the
That's a
mud?
valid question.
Sure, I guess that's a
Yes.
valid question.
Like it's just like, or just like, I don't know. She
Yeah,
was gonna walk
she-
around it.
Sammy,
to begin
Sammy
with.
was totally disconnected during this scene as well because she thought overacting was over the top and it was
Yeah.
not believable.
Again-
Man, I just
again,
felt exhausted. I was like, what the fuck?
No,
Again,
it
for
was
me,
very-
it's director choices, right? He
Yeah.
wanted him to go through the bog because that's a
Absolutely.
representation of the experience,
The
that
exhaustion
going-
that
yes,
this is going to be
yeah.
and require,
Mhm.
yeah, to get through. Yeah, I liked it. I do agree. I mean, it's a long scene for what's happening, but I really saw like those end movements as like I have nothing left to give, almost borderline silly overacting.
I think they I thought it was supposed to portray like the bog was so heavy, and he wanted to get through it so bad, but he couldn't get through it as fast as he wanted, that he was again losing it even more. And so that's when the acting got even bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, I get what they were going for. It just, for me personally,
sure felt dangerous.
Didn't work. The bog?
Yeah.
Bog?
No.
It felt like
I thought I would drown at any moment.
Again,
that bog,
as
that
Kyle
bog
said,
shit would land on you.
there's a couple of shots in it when you're watching the bog before Glasha gets in it, where you're like, she's just gonna walk around it. I can see her physically walking around this. There's really no threat here with this bog, and that's kind of how I felt with it. And I was just like, I'm like, this is just so done on purpose. Like, if I'm really trying to get there to these people, to see my family, to verify in my mind that they're alive, I'm going to go the fastest route possible. But this dude's like, no. Also, I'm going to back up and go grab her and throw her in the bog, which is the slowest thing possible. And I'm like, for me, it's just, there's a disconnect there.
Hold on a sec, because this is I had to pause the movie while I was watching it with Sammy, because she kept making comments like we were watching a fucking 80s slasher movie. And I was like, okay, this is like real life. Like, people aren't thinking, I shouldn't go this way. I shouldn't go upstairs. I should go out the front door of the scary house with the monster.
But that also,
and you're thinking the same thing. It's just like, why are they doing
because
this?
That tells you there is a disconnect in the storytelling aspect of this.
That multiple people are about being in this war area. You're not thinking straight. And I think the director did an excellent job of conveying that through this
I would disagree if
decision.
Hold on. But I think what I'm saying is I think that this is part of the story that he's trying to tell at this point. The bog is representation of the denial and loss of just like fucking disconnect from reality that this kid is feeling, and he drags Glasha into it.
Yes.
And when she finally says, "No, this isn't real," he tries to throw her right the fuck into it. Like, to me, I kind of read that as like this bog is a representation of just, I guess, the fog of just like his reality. He has to come to terms with the fact that, like, guess what? Shit just hit the fan. The war just hit you.
Yeah. And he needs to, like, get to the end of that shit so that he can, like, fucking realize what's going on.
Well, he came out the other side realizing that his family was dead. And then you see that through his time at the camp that they're brought to.
But wait, did the whole family? I thought that one of the sisters was still alive. Were they
No,
not?
the whole family's dead.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole family's dead. The elder village who warned him about digging up the gun has been set on fire by the Nazis and basically burnt to a crisp, dying. Which again, like a fun scene where we get to
a fun scene
where we just get this guy like I don't think we
special
needed
effects on him were very visceral and
I don't think we needed the dialogue. I think we could have gotten the same
I loved the dialogue.
Representation without the dialogue.
I think it drove home the big fear.
I love the dialogue because
fucking put the nail, the hammer of the head on the fucking nail, dude. It's over. It's
the
overboard.
dialogue is perfect because, like, this guy, you see him, he is literally burnt.
You know why he's burnt?
He is burnt because of everything that happened. But like,
they tell you the whole story.
He is obviously probably in like searing fucking pain, but he is mustering the energy and strength to fucking let Fliora know this is your fucking fault. Yeah. Right? I told you don't do it.
I want to say that I do think that the person that mentions that he's an idiot might actually be correct. I as much as it is trying to explain that like Fliora by digging the Nazis were killing everybody.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter whether or not this kid was digging or not. These people were going to die.
Yeah.
I just
like,
it just
moved into
again,
the top.
It was
of the
another it was another moment of like overkill for me in the movie where I'm like, you could have said more by saying less with this scene. You could have again focused on the facial features of Fiora and the realization that his actions, or at least in his mind, his actions have caused this elder man to be burned. But instead, we're led to believe that this man is like burned so badly, but he's got enough energy to tell you a 15 fucking minute story of why it's your fault.
Didn't he die right after telling him that?
He did, but no, it's a very long drawn out story, though. Is what I'm saying, Kyle. Like. it's just, again, I think you for such a strong visual movie, it's a nitpicking, but it's something that we could have told visually that we didn't really need the dialogue for.
I disagree.
Just my opinion.
And I appreciate your opinion, and I disagree. with
You're
that.
allowed to disagree. All right, guys, while we're disagreeing, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about Come and See. And we're back. We're talking about Come and See. Chris's pick, 1985.
I love the way you said
85, but it also was like 9 years of trying to get it approved to even make the movie, right?
Yeah,
You know,
I feel like that's what I read. That like it was a very difficult film to get.
Well, it's you know, they're touching on a subject that governments would be not interested in sharing or allowing in certain information out. You know, so I think there was a lot of hell when it came to that. But you know, obviously, it was that important to tell the story. You know that they persevered.
So where we left off in the story, speaking of that, is they are now in this island that is in the middle of this bog where the other survivors have hidden out, and they are taken to the village elders or idiot. Not really 100% sure which he is. And he gives this like, hey, I died because of you, or I'm dying because of you speech.
I got burned alive because of you.
And this is kind of where he gets his a second dose of bravery.
Yeah.
I guess is where
I think he comes to reality that, you know, hey,
what happened? I think he's more angry. He's got more energized to fight and to be helpful.
Let me say,
help
we have
the
another
cause.
overbearing scene of people just saying his name over and over again, which is another ADHD tick for me when I hear the same noise over and over again. It drives
that
me
was
insane.
just artistic choice on that one.
And then he tries to commit suicide,
right?
By sticking his
head in the mud,
in the bog, and trying to kill himself.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Did not pick up that.
I feel like that's a tough way to go to get yourself.
They pull him out, and he's like catatonic, kind of, right?
I mean, he's demoralized. I mean, he's completely
right.
He's
done
just
at
like
this
in
point.
a shock stage,
almost
almost like just staring into like his shame and guilt and the crushing of his whole.
You can hold up the front
soul.
of the box again. I feel like this is.
We're not quite at this phase yet in his story, but eventually.
Yeah, that's.
I wish
that's the whole film.
I think
it is.
There's another shot. I think it's either a poster or it was a fan made thing or something where it's like him, like a face shot like that where he's like at the beginning of the film and then him after. Like they make him very wrinkled to try to show like this.
Yeah,
like the aging.
I appreciate the special effects to
this,
add all the fucking lines to his forehead and shit. Like,
the changing of the color of his hair. You know, all the wrinkles and then his just dried out skin from. I mean, you know, you think about this like he's outside
and
this whole time.
Interesting thing, there's a scene in this right at this moment, right, where they're cutting his hair, and the guy cutting it says, "Your hair is so soft, like a child's hair." And it's like if you think about like the image of that, they're cutting it off.
Yeah,
they're like cutting that last bit of like
childhood off.
Youth's gone, baby.
Yeah.
Well, and this is also again like this is where I said that you see the change in him, where he basically goes with I think it's his uncle, or they say it's his uncle. To go look for food for the village. They basically put in their orders, and he's gonna bring it all back because he knows a safe place to get these things. And
it's not a safe place.
It's not a safe place. They end up robbing a guy for
immediately
his cow.
Cuts to them getting shot and running through a field.
Well, they get the cow. Once they steal the cow, two of them are exploded.
A mine. They step on a mine.
They step on a mine. Yeah,
but they're also
Hold on, let's not get past that scene. I loved that scene because like. For Fior, I can't say his fucking name. For him to like realizing that he just went tropsing through a minefield blindly and like went through it, and then to realize that I thought that was such a powerful shot of him just like staring, and it just added to his psychosis of everything.
It's kind of nuts because I used to live in the Philippines for a while, and you know, there was World War II hit that area pretty hard. There were areas off that were like roped off for like there were live mines just sitting there, and you would have to like actively be like, I can't go anywhere past this line because there were signs that would be like, please don't step in because we don't know if the mines have all been gathered or not.
Right.
Like it was kind of nuts to think that like 70 years later it was still kind of like
the nonchalantness too of him just picking up that leg and just hucking it back into the crater, and then they move on.
Right. And then they steal they steal this cow.
Wait, have we gotten to the point? I'm sorry if
About the
I'm a
cow.
little lost. No, where they're carrying the fake Hitler around with them?
Yeah, there
That's
is a
at this-
fake.
That's at
Hitler
this
thing.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's as this.
They
So as they're
build him on
traveling, they're
the. They put
carrying-
mud on him.
Oh
and,
man,
and
the
he's strapped
skull,
with
yeah, the
bombs,
skull
right?
with
That's
the
the
yeah.
mud getting-
thing.
It's meant to be a trap, a Trojan horse, I think, right? Or
Yeah,
something.
I think
I have
so.
no idea. I actually
it-
questioned that. Like, I was like, what is
I-
the purpose of this?
I think it was insult. It
Yeah.
was just,
Yeah,
it
definitely
was a way
insult.
to
Yeah.
insult, and they knew that the German soldiers would find it. So
I think there
But
was
that I
bombs all
love that
strapped
whole.
to it.
I
There
love
was,
that whole
yeah.
part though, where he's. I don't know. I can't remember what's happening to him. I think maybe he's recovering from everything that's happened up to this point. But yeah, just seeing the skull slowly get built over time with mud on it, like it actually really I was really drawn into that.
Sure. Yeah,
that
it
part.
looked pretty spooky too.
It was fucking
yeah.
terrifying. It was like a real fucking human skull, and they're like, "Oh, we'll just build Hitler off of this."
Yeah.
Fucking wild.
so. They do that out of mud, though.
Yeah.
They do it
No.
out of mud.
And they
got
also
that
and they-
out.
there's actually a really good scene too that I think kind of starts diving into like the end of this too.
Mm-hmm.
When they're building this, I can't believe we missed this part. They're building this Hitler, and then
Yeah.
there's a moment where they all start spitting on it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like the first time you kind of see,
Him.
like, it's
Yeah.
it's not a moment of like let's go fight the war. It becomes I fucking hate this
Yes,
person.
yeah.
Like,
It
and you
became
see
visceral
that, like
anger.
the hate kind of
Yeah.
overrun
Yeah.
Floria, and as he's spitting and he's
Yep.
spitting, and it's like there's nothing coming out almost because he's just spitting through so much, and he's just like,
Yeah.
like, and it's yeah, I thought that was a very powerful.
The
scene
clear
as well.
symbol of everything that they're fighting for,
Yeah.
like against, I guess I should say, and what they're trying to destroy, what they think they're trying to destroy. And yeah, I mean, like the thing is it does feel so claustrophobic too. At the same time, it's like running through minefields, having to constantly be aware of like your surroundings. Even like, I mean, with the headphones on when I watched it, in the very distant, you can hear like the rumbling of cars. Where it's like if you were so aware of your surroundings, you'd be so
Yeah.
tuned in as to hear cars coming, 2 miles
Well,
away.
like a war zone would be so quiet.
Yeah.
Like it would just be pure silence, and then punctuated with random sounds of things happening,
Mhm.
or gunfire, or explosions, or whatever. So yeah,
Exactly.
I think they did a great job of like painting that. But that's why I thought the plane was actually real. I didn't think the plane was a hallucination that keeps flying overhead. I think that the plane was there to simply illustrate to us as the audience of what it was like to be under siege. Because I don't know my history well, but I recall reading that one of the tactics to like demoralize was to just constantly have the planes flying overhead, because it's like you're constantly under surveillance. There's constantly the enemy look like over your
mean,
head.
You
at all
become
Hell,
times.
tuned to that sound.
And I think they pulled
yeah.
that into this film to kind of like drive home, like every time something horrible happens, like he's recognizing that he's just stuck in this war zone now.
That's why I thought maybe it is somewhat of a hallucination or something like that.
Mhm.
Because anytime something horrible happens, I almost wonder if he's going back and blaming himself. So he sees the image of the plane, which he thinks is the kickoff of or the catalyst for
Yeah.
everything that has happened to
I
him up
think
to
that's
this point.
possible. Yeah.
I mean, I,
do
de-
think
I
that's
definitely think it's the
possible.
looming aspect of war that at least the director is trying to
Right.
Yeah.
keep present in our mind all the time. It's definitely a symbol that just keeps showing up, and anytime you see a symbol like this in a piece of cinema, it's kind of like
There's times where the
there's
shot.
a psychological and literal
Yeah.
Yeah.
reality.
There's
of
times
that
where the
thing.
shot of that plane though doesn't really align with the time of day or the shot that
Yeah.
it's cutting from. So that's when I started to question like does he just think he's seeing it, or is it just showing that he's alert to like, oh, is it up there? No,
Well,
it's not.
I mean,
you
there's
know?
also like I remember I had a friend that used to like he was in Iraq, and he was explaining to me like just like what mortar is like.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how you can hear it, and just like you just hear it, and it might not be near you or anything, but like you hear the sound, and it's just like
Well,
The
it's
whistling,
always looming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
it's
do
like
it in the
always
they
this
do it in the
looming
movie
thing.
with a bottle, right? Like a wine bottle or
that
something
was
like
the
that.
most insane scene. Yeah, with the bottle. He said that the Nazi pilots would just get drunk up there and then huck the bottle out the window.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it
that's
happened
right.
to land right next to them
Yeah.
along the road, which is fucking insane. And like, I don't remember the name of a book, but I remember reading a book in high school where like this kid is in Civil War times, and he like looks and sees two musket balls like colliding in front of his face as a way to illustrate how much gunfire was happening, and like the fact that the bottle landed and didn't shatter, it landed perfectly fine in the bog was just like, to me, it was very visceral of this, like what a war zone is actually like, or what it feel like. It would be insanely weird shit like that happening, and it would feel like that's normal. Yeah, they just get drunk up there and they throw bottles out the fucking window.
I mean, it's a completely different world. I remember somebody trying to explain to me about squirrels, how like panicked they are all the time. They're always just like looking around all the time because they live in a world where a hawk could just come and take you.
Yeah.
We live in a world where we're not worried about that kind of thing.
We're not on alert like that.
we're not on alert on that level.
We don't have hawk alert.
When you're in a situation like this where a bomb can fly and just destroy you, you must be like, imagine trying to sleep.
No, there is
Ever.
no
No
sleep.
fucking way.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're gonna have to sleep at some point in time. Your body's gonna
gotta
make
hide
you
in a
to some
corner,
degree, but
like under something.
like,
I don't know.
mean, these are all things that I think are just like the
Hope you don't get
reality of
eaten
things that
alive.
you don't really take into account of
Totally.
like that this
Yeah.
film is trying.
I was
to...
even looking.
But that's
at,
also okay. That kind of brings me back to the point I was trying to make earlier when in the discussion of like, do you think that some of the hope is that, like you said, he's not getting sleep? Some of the situations, it's worse being alive than it is dead in here, and it's like,
Yeah, but
I
you
think
keep
he
going
thought he
on.
was actually going to go kind of save his family by
oh,
joining
I think
the
he
partisans.
agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with
so-
that. So it's like sometimes I think living with the tragedies and the things that he's seen and stuff like that is more horrific
Than if he had
than
just died.
than death itself, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I
Sure.
think
It's true.
they're trying to portray
I don't
in
even
this
think they're
movie.
thinking trying to do that. I think they are.
Yeah, because
I mean,
I think even the book that Out of the Fire is supposed to be from the perspective of someone who saw a lot of this shit like that
Mhm.
actually happened,
Okay.
you know. So like they are taking it from a real perspective. Like I think a lot of this is from like a pretty genuine like account of how it went down, you know.
So that's why I guess that's what brings me back to like in that discussion of like, I don't know how much character growth we actually get because of just, again, like he's almost not allowed to grow.
but
no, we don't get character growth.
Yeah.
In this
But
film.
wait, but growth doesn't necessarily have to mean like.
What does it mean to you?
When we talk about character growth, we're mistaking the fact that there's also a thing like character arc, which doesn't necessarily have to mean that the person ends up better off than when he did. It just needs to that he goes through a scenario and doesn't come out the same way on the other side.
I'll say I saw some character growth on that
Yeah.
scene where they're all like dragging ass. Like unfortunately, it gets two people killed, but like, you know, they're all like, "Should
This is-
we wait?" And he's like, "No, where people are starving, we
Right.
need to go." But
That's what I meant by this is where he kind of gets
Yeah.
in his brave phase,
yeah.
and like we got to go. But then I say, is it a brave phase, or is he just coming to grips with the reality that he's more than likely going to die at like sooner rather than later?
I think his expressions like ask, you know, that same question in the movie,
Yeah.
like during these scenes, especially. Like, I feel like that him having those like really extreme close-ups conveys exactly that, like what you're saying. Like, am I gonna die? Or did I cause this? Like, you know, why do I keep surviving? you know, and people around me keep dying.
That's the
Right.
vibe I kept getting in this
You
film. Was
know,
like, why?
He's shocked that he's still here. Like, and I mean, this happens a couple other times in the
Right,
movie
yeah.
still, that where he's like, "What?" Or I think he's like, "WTF? How did I get through it?" You
Yeah.
know?
So again, where we're at in the movie is just the
He has
cow
the cow,
scene
right?
at this point. So they steal a cow
Right.
from some random villager.
Yeah.
And then they come under gunfire.
yeah.
You know, from
I think they're in a are they in a crossfire?
it looks like they're in a crossfire. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that what's
Between-
happening?
It
Yeah.
looks that's what I
Yeah,
took
because
it
they
as.
at no point they were ever
Mm.
getting actually shot at. It was just the bullets were whizzing in their general
I
direction.
guess that's
So
true.
kind
I
of-
thought they were shooting a flare that lit up the area so that they could see where they were, and then they were firing on them when they could see.
I mean, I imagine in the
Probably.
midst of battle, like I'm sure, like you're firing your gun on either side of
Right.
whatever side you're fighting on, like whatever you're looking at, if you see a flare go flying up, you're like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it's just
like,
tracer. They were shooting at the tracers, probably the tracer rounds, wherever the tracer rounds are coming from. You're going to shoot from in that general direction.
Can I say
This
I've
shot,
never
though, when
seen
it-
that? I've never seen what
Tracer
that
rounds?
I've never seen really what that looks like,
Which-
and
That's what they look like.
Which
and-
part? Tracer rounds?
yeah, and also
yeah, you can
like,
see them in war.
That's what they look like.
the way
video.
they
yeah,
shoot.
it's pretty nuts.
Well, the way they shot this scene too, like, and how they put you so right below like the line of fire, like, and it really just highlights so well how terrifying it is that people just spray bullets at each other, like, in war. And this is what it looks like. You can't really see it in the daytime. Shit's just getting hit, whatever. You don't know where it's coming from. Here at night, it's lit up like embers flying, and you see them ricocheting off of things and flying all these different directions. And I just thought this was one of the shots in the trailer that really sold me on. I have to fucking see this movie because this shot was like, I was like, what? This is incredible. But this is not even like something like you guys all said. Yeah, tracer bullets, like it's so common, But to me, it was like so terrifying to see something like that.
Yeah, and this is when they shoot a cow, which like I was watching, I was like, oh wow, that
That was
I
real.
didn't know that happened, but that is a real thing I just watched right there.
I didn't know that was real.
Oh no, like
the-
they
the
actually
way that
shot the cow. No, not in real life. I don't know that they actually
I don't
shot,
know if they did. I don't.
literally shot the cow.
I have no
I
idea.
thought you said that they literally shot the cow.
No, in the movie they do. I don't think it's an Apocalypse Now situation where they. I don't know.
They actually shot the cow on set.
It's
Like, yeah.
possible. I just don't know. I didn't.
It definitely didn't look fake.
So unconfirmed. We don't know if the cow actually got shot.
yeah, unconfirmed.
I
cow.
hope not.
We're gonna rate this cows.
Now that being said,
was convincing,
the other
though.
director
It
that I
looked
know
convincing.
screened this movie before they shot a film was Francis Ford Coppola for Apocalypse Now. So I don't know. Maybe the cow thing was a.
I don't know, but
I don't know.
either way, it was effective. I'll say that.
It's effective imagery. There's some of it I could do without, like the whole close up of the eyeball of the cow. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay, we're getting artistic with it. I get it. Like that's
okay,
just me.
whatever. We're getting artistic.
That's
with
just
it.
well because
Fuck your film.
like, at that point it was a little bit of an eye roll for me because I'm like, I don't know. This seems like it
You
just,
and Sammy should have watched this movie together.
like at that like that one. Just,
I feel like I watched the movie with you.
that. Like it was just it was unnecessary, didn't need to be there. Like the cow getting shot and him sleeping on the cow was graphic enough. I really didn't need like the whole weird eye thing. It just was just yeah.
How come he tries
What
to
about
start
him
deciding
waking up?
to cut the cow up? Like I'm still gonna bring it back. And it's like no, you
Yeah, well,
fucking ain't,
he
dude.
wakes up on the cow and then he starts like pulling its head and like that's when I started thinking, is that a real dead cow? Because
Yeah, I
he's
don't
just
know.
yanking the fuck out of that cow's head. It's not moving at all.
I will
Yeah.
say that when I saw the film, I thought that they definitely did kill the cow in real life.
The way
There was at least a dead cow on
those
set.
tracers hit the cow and like disappear through the cow, I was like,
It's I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, but
maybe.
also I think about the caliber around it probably was that would have came from a
It was an
tracer
8
like there.
millimeter.
it would
You
like
think that small?
I know 8 millimeters
Oh,
massive.
I
It's like a
mean,
30-06.
Oh, because that
Because that would have been an MG42.
like that'll eviscerate something.
that was
right?
what I'm saying. Like there would have been a big exit hole.
yeah, we didn't see the backside. We saw the
Yeah,
front
but
side.
I'm saying we would have seen like I feel like we would have seen like
Eh,
debris.
debris.
I don't know what other way to put it. Like
I
we
mean,
would have
cow's
seen.
a big fucking animal.
All right,
so-
right. So we would have seen
True.
some cow chunks fly when the bullets hit it. Is just my guess.
Getting
Well,
dark.
Anyway,
I know. I'm just saying.
It
But
needed
Yeah,
to look
we had
clean
it-
for
I'm- 'cause
the-
I'm really
for the
hoping
next
that him just-
shot.
We just had to touch the darkness slightly.
I'm just
Don't
re-
pull it
I-
back
well,
up.
no. The only reason I'm touching the darkness is because I'm really hoping they didn't shoot the cow.
I don't want that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want that.
I thought they did.
I do not want them to shoot the cow. So, anyways, he decides he needs something to drag this cow or haul this cow because he can't do it himself. So he
Can we just say he wakes up in like the mistiest, foggiest,
That
like
was so crazy.
like that's spooky, right? You
Yeah.
can't see more than like a couple feet
fucking
around
very
you.
spooky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Imagine that shit in
your
wartime.
senses are really heightened
Yeah.
in that fucking scenario.
Well, so he goes and he stumbles upon in this fog. He stumbles upon a horse that's out plowing a field.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to steal it. The man who's plowing the field with his horse stops him and does a very interesting thing.
Hmm.
And he instead of like either turning him in or or something like
trying
that.
to fight him or anything.
Anything like that. He just says, "Come with me. You're this guy. You're this guy."
This is
because we know the
first
Nazis are now
character-
starting to kind of like show up because we get this. This is the first time we see the motorcycle with the dead body that says, "I made fun of a."
I
German
insulted a
officer.
German
Officer?
officer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I insulted a German soldier, not even
Yeah,
an officer.
yeah,
just a
soldier.
This morning.
No,
Yes.
I think that, this is like the first person who like looks at Fleur as
As a
like
child.
You're a child,
Right.
Like you're coming back with me. And like, this is the first time in the movie where he's like, since his mom, where he's viewed that way.
I agree.
I don't know. I think he kind of understands, like when he goes, "You got an axe, I got a cow to cut up." Like I feel like that's when the guy kind of knows, like, okay, like he's just trying to survive. Like he's not actually trying to like hurt me or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know exactly why he's so like jumps on board to like help this kid, like
Well, I think
and
he's
give
just
him a whole
protecting-
alias.
I think it's
Protecting
because
one
again
another.
it becomes. I think at this point, like everybody knows,
that's
it's
how you gotta
us versus
survive.
it's us versus the Nazis.
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
will
Just gotta
kill
back
you
each other up.
no matter
Everyone's
what.
gotta be
And
in
if they
on it,
find
yeah.
out you're also, it's like one of those things. Like if they find out who you are, they're gonna kill me anyway. Damned if I do,
Mhm.
damned if I don't.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
it's true.
like they're gonna kill me anyways. And I almost though question though if this town knew they were gonna get killed or not. At first I almost feel like they didn't know. And then like when the first officer comes in and sits down at the table and starts talking, I almost question if the village thought they were gonna like they might make it out,
No, I didn't think that at all. As soon as they
You think
showed
so?
up, I was like, I feel like they were all like,
because they're still going
disagree. I
over they're still going
disagree.
over cover stories right up until they walk
Right up
into the
to
door.
it.
I think
Yeah.
they know what the Nazis are capable of, but I don't
Right.
think they really know the extent of what they're doing to people around the like around the country.
I also-
there was a
also
lot
think
of
that-
visualization though that was pushing the fact of what's coming. Right, you saw like the single truck come to a stop, and then like 100 soldiers
Yeah, you're
coming
like,
out of the
so many
single
people.
truck. You're like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? And so
Very
they
cool shot, by the
built
way.
up, amazing shot, but they built it up as this overwhelming force that is descending upon this town. So at
So
this
many
point, it's
people,
like
yeah.
nobody's getting out of this in any
It was just
good way.
Well, and it's also pure chaos because as the force gets stronger and stronger, again, sound design, so does the noise.
Mm-hmm.
As more
Oh,
show
yeah.
up, the noise gets louder and builds and builds and builds until we get to the I guess this would be the crescendo of this movie is this scene.
Mhm.
Because at this point the Nazis show up, they take over this town,
Correct.
and then they herd everybody
Corral 'em all
into a church.
the church. Yep.
And
So
There's like a couple hundred people in the town. There's
yeah.
probably what
Yeah.
like 1,000 Nazis.
So I will say this from my research of this film. I know for a fact that this actually was a
this happened.
recounted thing from somebody.
Yes.
Somebody was in the place of Floria in this scenario where
Mhm.
he was the one that was spared, so to
Right.
speak.
And they basically say, leave the children in there and you adults come out. And if you come out, you'll live. And
It basically
You just
was
gotta crawl
a
through this window. Yeah.
psychological game, the fucked up game they were playing,
Yeah.
which is like if you're willing to leave women and children behind, we'll spare your life. Let's see, and it is it's kind of
and let's
an
just
attempt to try to show, I guess, cowardice, I guess, in their mind. I don't know what they were.
I want to say in this part in the movie, this is when you actually first see the Nazis. Really, I
Yes.
feel like like up until
A
this point,
close-up,
they're
yeah.
always like in the distance firing off. Like you don't really get to know them as the casually vicious.
I don't think you see faces of them either. I don't think you see any of the
Just the
faces
guy
of the
in the
paratroop.
tree.
No, do you see his face or is it very
It's
dark?
very
and-
far away.
The
and very
paratrooper,
dark,
the
but that's, like,
paratrooper, you see
closest
just
thing
barely,
dangling,
but
but
you
you're
don't see
not
his face.
like at a
So you don't
moment.
see
This is the first time
you
you
don't
see
see
him,
any
like-
faces of Nazis until like at this point.
Pretty
So-
much.
First
so-
time you hear him speak.
So, and even through the mist, right? They're coming through the fog, and like you
Mm-hmm.
don't even see them until like finally, like they're entering this room where all of these people are like gathered, and I guess they're gathered there, thinking that
Oh,
they're
I
just
think they
coming
know
to
why they're
check.
gathered
They're
at that
Well,
point.
no, I think they don't quite know actually because like
Well, they don't tell them.
they're asking about like farm produce and like different like forms a business and to basically prove that they're this or that, you know. So
it's a sick scene. They're playing with these people.
And they're also also the Nazis are looking for partisans because they believe there's one. I think they believe there is one in the village. I think they say there's one here.
Yeah,
I believe. I could be wrong on that,
but it's a game for sure.
Right. It's a
like,
fucked up game,
and you can tell too. They're kind of like partying around the village, like being crazy.
They're drunk.
They got the dead body going
blaring,
around on the thing.
There's
blaring music.
There's one other survivor, you know, who's a woman, and
she jumps out. So this was to me, which is crazy to say. This was the hardest. This was the hardest part for me to watch. Was not like even the end result of this. But it's when they she comes through the window. She passes her child through first, and then she comes through the window.
Mm-hmm.
They fucking throw that kid back. But I'm like, damn actors, that's somebody's kid. Like that was really rough. That's the one part of the movie where I was like, that's kind of that one hit me. That was too realistic.
Tossing the kid through.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Was, and then they drag the woman through. Which again, I think it's just because a kid. I have a young child at home who's similar in age to the kid that they rough handled.
Having kids really ruins watching movies.
They've corralled everybody into the. I guess like it looks like a church to me.
I guess it is.
It is a church.
Yeah, I thought it was a barn, but I guess you would say it's a church.
It looks like a church.
It has a steeple.
So after just two people escape, which are our main character is one of them, they grenade it. They burn it.
They
shoot
Molotov
it.
cocktail it.
Yeah.
They shoot it with a flamethrower. They
kill everybody.
And this is just you get screams and terrible sounds and music.
Well, here can I just say this too? We were talking about like how like this movie was pretty well built up like before we saw it, whether it was by our own research or people that told us about it, and like. I thought for sure at this point in the film that they would be showing some extremely gruesome imagery.
I agree.
And I was pleasantly surprised to find that they actually don't show you a lot like in this movie.
They don't show anything graphically.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, if it comes down to like the scene and how it was built and stuff like that, I actually found this. I mean, it's very difficult to watch.
It's disturbing.
Obviously,
it's sad. It's torture. It's you're watching people be extremely barbaric and happy about it, which is like sickening.
And then even what I do afterwards to the two survivors, right? Like I mean,
oh gosh,
like the good cruelness continues, right? With Floria, they put a gun to his head and they take a shot of it.
They cock it.
Yeah. And it's meant.
He's ready to die.
He's ready to die. It's fucking done.
And just fucking walk away.
They let him go.
They take a
walk away like he doesn't even exist.
And by the way,
the girl
again, you're asking yourself at that point again, like, is the kinder thing at this point just to kill this child for what he's been through?
That's the thing. I think that's where the cruelty extends, right? Like I'm gonna let you watch all of this and I'm gonna keep you alive. Hey, we kept our promise, right? Ha ha. Like it's this 100%. Very horrible thing. Now, as far as the girl is concerned, that did not that ends up even worse, right? Like these people, it just shows the absolute cruelty of this scene,
right?
It extends beyond.
I think what Chris's point is I was in the same boat as this. As I'm reading these articles online and as I'm reading people's comments and this buildup, I'm expecting gratuitous. I'm expecting to see.
I am also happy that it wasn't.
And this
gratuitous.
is why, again, throughout this whole movie, I have this disconnect and this wall built up because I am preparing myself to see.
But did you feel disconnected from it? I mean, I thought I was horrified.
I disconnected. Yes, because at that point, it became a movie to me.
Did you watch this 2 times, Kyle?
No, I really wanted to.
I think it's
really wanted.
So can I tell you something?
But I just didn't have time.
I'm with you. I actually did watch this a second time.
I'm going to watch it a second time.
I'm going to be honest with you. The first time I watched this film, I don't think I grasped it fully. The second time after I watched it, I was like, oh, fuck.
Agreed.
And I do think that this is one of those films that, and don't get me wrong, I believe there are some films that are one-watch films. Like, for me, like, Taxi Driver is one where it's like, I don't have to see it again. Great film, 100%, 5 stars all around.
Twice.
I'm still going to be like, yeah, I don't need to see this again. I don't really need to. This is one of those films where it could easily be that. It could have been that way for me if I didn't feel like I needed to really Yeah, I don't think I caught all that. I have to talk about it now,
I felt
right?
the same
so it's
thing.
like
I felt like I
to.
have to watch it again. I just didn't have time to, but I'm definitely
no,
going to for sure.
Oh man,
Watch it
I did
again.
not have that feeling at all.
No, you don't. I would even say like I'm all on board for you never watching this film if
Yeah,
you felt
sure,
like it was a
yeah.
lot. Like I don't want
See,
to put somebody through like a traumatic experience.
That's the thing,
just
though.
To
It's
watch a
like
film.
too. I don't know if I walked away from this film saying that was a lot, in the sense that again, because again, the world we live in and what's going on in today's world.
I think that the toll that I heard from the invasion of Belarus is, I think, something to the effect of like 2 million people were
Just
killed.
insane.
There was a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people died. Like
Right.
obviously,
It was a genocide.
And I mean, one of the worst things that I came across reading the history, and this was in regards to Poland, not necessarily Belarus, but I mean, it gives you insight into like what the Nazi like agenda was, right? Like Hitler makes a point in like a recorded like memo or something where he says, "This is war. The goal of war is to defeat our enemies." That means killing everyone, and I mean women and children and everyone. No Poland Pole should survive. Like I mean, like his attitude about war was very much like you go into a place, you kill everybody, you decimate everything. This is what we do. Like that's how we're gonna win this war.
Well, and we even get that really fed to us after he escapes this horrible thing, and the Nazis drive off and
Burn the whole village down.
burn the
Yeah.
whole village down. He ends up catching back up with the partisans, and they have captured, these Nazis on their way, and they've gotten a fight with him. It looks like
man, I forgot about this scene.
there's this scene with the officer who's like begging for his life, and then just one of the soldiers, I'm not sure if he was an officer or a soldier, is just like, no, fuck you guys, you're animals, you're below us.
Yeah.
Oh, but before
was the officer at the
before this
barn.
though, like
He was the one who gave the
before
ultimatum.
this, like Fleur stumbles upon like the woman, the German woman who was like laughing maniacally as like they were doing shit, and she's just like sitting there like pinned down, like her shirt's off, and she's just like slowly dying, and he's just sitting there staring like with a cold dead stare.
He takes the bandage to fix his gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's still on it. He's still on his quest, I guess, his mission.
Well, I think his mission is to just find somewhat of normalcy and safety, and but like I said, we just get to that scene where it's just like again the one soldier's like, no, fuck you guys, like you are below us, you're scum, like yeah, we were gonna kill all of you, as we should,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's just such a disgusting, awful
But
taste in your
I mean,
mouth.
and then but,
to the point to where the crowd is so disgusted that they were like, we're gonna set these motherfuckers on fire. They're so disgusted, they're like, we're not even gonna wait, and they just shoot them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's essentially what happened. I mean, I think we're also missing the point that there in the midst of this, there is in fact a Russian that is on the Nazi side that is the translator essentially between the thing, and he is begging for his life as like, hey, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do? Like, I
keeps
choose
trying
this, and and.
But no, we also have to remember that like the commander, like the older gentleman keeps saying, I'm an old man, I'm an elderly man, I don't have any beef.
Right.
But that's not true. He was like the top dog.
He was
there.
trying to
he
pretend
does
like
try
he
to
was
weasel
nothing.
his way out of this.
Absolutely.
So then that younger guy, like I guess, stepped up and was like admitted the evil monster that he was,
Yeah.
And I do believe that this scene is meant to try to build us up to some sense of justice.
Yes.
For this,
needed
before
to be
we get
something to happen in this movie.
before we get to where we ultimately land, I suppose.
But this is when I start asking myself too the question that the film I think is ultimately asking is like, so by this point when they're about to set these Nazis on fire, they end up shooting them, killing them. Like there's that shot of the guy who's holding the torch, and then he eventually decides to just throw it into the water. And I think that was the realization of like, if I set them on fire, that's the same thing that they just did to us.
It is a big moment
Yeah.
of the where this is ultimately leading us to.
Sure.
Because,
Yeah.
I guess there's nowhere else to go, right, from this, right? Like
Just,
we go.
what are you trying to get to when he's shooting at Hitler's
Right.
picture?
So we finally get to the shot of there's a picture. The partisans are ready to go. They're calling to Floria, hey, let's go, right? And as he's looking down, he sees a picture of Hitler, right? And he is so enraged with anger that he takes his rifle and he just starts just firing rounds into this
Right.
thing. But in between that, we are being shown actual scenes, like
Right.
you said, of the Holocaust,
Mhm.
these atrocities, real life things,
There's
right?
everything going in reverse.
And it's going in reverse, and it ends on a picture of Hitler as a child.
Right.
Yeah, with his mom holding him.
And I do like I just
And that's
don't.
when he stops shooting.
And like right, like I'm not trying to, like everybody's subtext is different. Like take it from what you will, but like I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can take this, right? Like I mean, are we saying that like, hey, maybe that this path that Floria is on, this anger that has built up in him, has is being reflected in like Hitler, like he could end up being a monster as well, like
Right.
just like you said with this guy that like put the
Right.
flare the torch down and says like, hey, I don't want to do this, right? Like what does war really do to people?
Yeah.
Right? Like what does it create more monsters in the end? Does it take away, does it strip you of all of your humanity, right? And like I think that that's kind of like where this is really being. This is where the anti-war messages of this film really shine. Is at this very, and I just think that like this director did a fantastic job of taking us on a journey and really driving that point home. Like you got to get here to get here.
Mm-hmm. You have to see all this shit,
Yeah.
like to understand at the end of the day, like, are you becoming, a Hitler, so to speak?
I want to come back to the ending of this film, which is after he shoots the picture of Hitler, he falls into ranks and he just kind of vanishes into the ranks.
Well,
and that was the part of the film where I kind of felt like, okay, this is kind of like a propaganda thing. This is like he went through all of this and he became just a nameless soldier along with the ranks fighting for the Mother Russia.
It's very very possible that he goes off and he continues and he's still angry and he goes off and he maybe he does become a monster. Maybe he doesn't become like.
I just think he joins the ranks of the
right. But
partisans.
it's not like he puts down his rifle and walks off and
no he joins. He falls back into ranks.
He falls back
joined
into
so
rank.
he could fight.
I think it's all like this, they're going off into winter now, right? Like they're marching into like it goes from like a green forest, and then as soon as it cuts through, it's like a snowy forest. And I almost feel like, it's like war is cold, war is continuous. Like, like there's gonna like I almost feel like it's gonna march on. Like there's gonna.
Let me ask you this question: in your mind, did you think, "Oh, he lives through this"?
No, I don't think he.
Or
lived.
you think he died?
If you were to ask me, based on the statistics, probably
he
not.
died, right? I thought the same thing. So again, when he just goes back and falls into the ranks, I'm in the mindset
I
of
didn't
like
think that
was kind of
I mean, he might he might.
We didn't
survive.
follow the main character.
Yeah, no,
like
we
we
followed a person, and this and the person that the things that the main character that we follow in this movie experienced was not unique to him.
Also, I think it's just to show
the
you
war
the
is the
story
story.
is not over. The war is not over just because he got through these parts.
Right.
Like,
That's
it's
why I'm
not
kind of saying the
done.
war is the war is the story.
The
The
war is the
atrocity
story.
are the story.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what do you say we rate this Mammer Jammer? What are we rating it?
Let's do rifles.
There you go. Well, set the whole
Rifles.
story in motion. Brings us home.
Very interested to
Second
see
constant.
what the reviews are. I guess I'll go first since I kind of already started.
Yeah, you started it.
Like I said, like aesthetically, sound design, cinematography. I don't even think we talked about like these weird shots at the end where the girl who was captured by the Nazis kind of comes back with a train whistle in her mouth, which I don't know what that symbolism was, but she's all beat up. And they do this kind of like shot where it's like they make it look like she's in the same area as him, but they're not. They're not in the same
Is this
area.
the House of 1,000 Corpses shot that you like so much?
It's
like
like
they definitely did that technique in this.
Well, no, it's like it's like they're literally in the same frame. It's the side of his face, and it's her close up of her face, and it is an amazing film for those things. My personal taste though, for what I enjoy with films and stuff like that, when I watch a movie and stuff like that, it's more for escapism and it's more to get away from the reality. Now, do I think films like this are important? 110%. Like, they are important. If you were to ask me on a technical standpoint, I would give this film a 5, but this is me and what I prefer. For me, this is 2.5. I see the beauty in it. I see the horror in it, but it's not a movie I personally enjoy, or do I have the need or want to go back and watch again. It's just not for me. So for that reason, it's middle of the road. Oh, and I will also go on and say that I don't believe this is a cult film. I don't believe there is an audience clamoring to watch this out there. Like, it was like, can't wait, man. When's the come and see screening?
When's
coming
the
to
8K version gonna drop?
Yeah, I'm sure there are people like that who are extreme film buffs, but again, that's not me. Let's go with Mike next.
Yeah, I thought this film was captivating from top to bottom. The first time I saw it, I was a little, off balance from it. I still thought it was amazing. I just didn't quite capture everything. I actually still don't think that I've captured everything. This actually might be barring watching this a few more times. I think this is one of those films where you watch something and you get something new out of it every single time. I'm definitely going to give this 5, right? Like, I think this is a solid film. I think it's one of the... I'm going to put this in the top echelon of films I've ever seen, quite honestly. I think it's fantastic. I do agree with you that this is not a cult film. I do not think... Like, I understand, like, some of the shots are really magic, like, amazing, and it takes a different direction that maybe some other films in this type of genre take. I don't like, but like in terms of like having a lasting, like, there's not like quotable things
Right.
in this film. There's not like moments where I'm like, well, that's memorable. Like, I just don't think it's gonna gain, like, I guess when I think of cult films, I think of like a fan base that just is clamoring. I just don't see that. I think this is one of those like film buff films that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love these films, which is why I'm rating it what I am. But yeah, not a cult film. Definitely a solid film. I think anyone that is into this type of film should watch this film. It's a very important film, and it's really good if you did like Schindler's List, if you did like some of the war films that came out during maybe our eras, to see some of the influence, because there's a lot. There's a lot of influence that I saw from those films in this film.
Kyle?
Man, okay. I don't know, man. All right, I'm gonna come in at 3.5 on this. That might be a 4, actually. I'm gonna come in at a 4 on this. Okay. Scratch that. It's gonna be 4 rifles. I thought this was. I agree with pretty much everything that Mike said. Like, it's an artistic film. From a filmmaking perspective. Goddamn, the cinematography captivated me from the first frame to the very last frame. The sound design, the technical is just so incredible. The story that's being told. It's funny. Sammy and I, my wife and I, watched a World War II documentary recently. That actually had just come out on Netflix probably a year ago. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching that, it really emphasized a lot of what was going on, like in the early, part of the war, and what was going on with Russia and with Eastern Europe and stuff. And I definitely got a visceral feeling that I just probably didn't have before from our American education system, not fully, showing us exactly what happened. And this movie still gave me that vibe. But it's also the reason I'm knocking points off is because this cinematography that is so well executed, with utilizing this POV functionality where we're looking through the eyes of Fleora throughout most of this film, it to me, I think, created a bit of a disconnect, which is like, it made me start to think like, okay, I'm watching a documentary, like, and in terms of my emotional engagement to this character, they become even more of kind of one of many millions who experience this shit, So it's like, even though it shouldn't disconnect me to the point of being desensitized in the world we live in, it did slightly disconnect me from this character and like throughout the whole film. So for that, I'm knocking a point off of it. So I will come in at a 4 rifles.
4 rifles for Kyle. Chris T. Willenbrecht?
Good T.
Stands for Terrence.
I had to think about it because, in the sense that you, Cody, say that you watch movies for escapism, and I was thinking like, okay, well, I do too, but I also watch movies because I feel like movies are like a safe way to experience something that you would never want to like really be in any other way, like other than seeing it through this viewpoint of like whether it be horrific, entertaining, like any of this stuff, like it is your safe zone to experience that. So like even going into movies that I think are going to be like shocking or pushing the boundaries or like making me feel a certain way, good or bad, like I always feel like I'm in that safe place. And like that's why I appreciate movies like this that are made, because this is a real aspect of life that occurred. And like we do agree that there are parallels here to current life and a story that's being told so long ago. But it's like, but this could all still apply, and this could like, then like this is a safe way to understand, going with the anti-war message. This is a safe way to understand, like, if you really want to fuck around and find out, like, this is how shit goes. Like, it's horrible, it's dirty, it's muddy, it's, evil, like, it's scary, like, everything about, like, life is horrible and claustrophobic. And, like, movies like this give you a way to sort of check yourself into reality and go, like, this if this filmmaker didn't make this, like I might not actually be able to put myself in that position. Like you say, you can get it from, social media and get like that kind of realistic point of view. Whereas for me, like following Fliora's character through this little piece of his journey, which is based, like somewhat in reality, like something that actually happened to somebody. I'm thankful for that people make films like this, because like it's such a sacrifice, like to do something like this and to do it in such a like a masterful way. Like the Steadicam work in this is like, it gave me Shining vibes, like it really like it, but it makes the movie beautiful, like, and it makes this like setting feel beautiful, even though it's so ugly what is actually happening and like the fear that's actually all around everyone. I have to give this I'm just gonna go like a full 5 rifles on this. I watched it twice. I think it needs a second watch to really appreciate, um, I don't know, I guess like the rhythm of the film and like sort of, I do have some gripes with it. I'll say like the one gripe I have is I feel like it does drag in some spots, but
I'm still in the bog.
But overall, like it's like Mike said, it's a film that you can watch, and it's like, while it's a horrific like subject matter, like I am grateful that they didn't go gory with the film, and
Agreed.
I'm grateful that they didn't go, like I thought I was gonna see, heads getting shot and all this stuff. Like it's actually pretty tame, like a lot more tame than I thought it was gonna be. Now the subject of it is it's horrific, but I was grateful that like it kept it didn't distract with necessary gore, like from the storytelling of like the imagery and the sound, like that, which were both, in my opinion, masterfully done. So, yeah, 5 rifles for me.
Well, fuck me. I gotta say, I think Chris's review bumped mine up too.
What do you want to redo it?
I'm not redoing shit.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just commenting. It was a very masterfully provided review of the film.
The interesting thing I learned about this film is that the director never, after he did this film, that was it. Like, he didn't do anything else.
Oh,
He had
interesting.
films before it, though.
He had films before this, but after this, he was done. And one day he was asked, like, why didn't you do any films? He was like, I did it all.
He did what he needed to do.
Yeah, that's like that's like Clive Barker. That's like his thing. Like he did film, and people have been asking him to go back and do movies. He's like, I've done everything I need to do in film. Some people are just
they're fulfilled,
fulfilled, and some people are always chasing that dragon. That's our show for this week. Do us a favor, head over to iTunes, leave us a review. If you do, we'll give you a shout out at the end of the show. And then head over to cultfilminreview.com. Make sure you get in your fan request. And then head over to our social media at cultfilm_review on Instagram and TikTok. Make sure you be a part of the conversations. You never know, you might get mentioned on the show. All right, guys. That is our show for this week. Remember, if you're going to join a cult, make sure they watch good movies. We'll see you next time.